The room hung heavy with unspoken tension, a neutral space where emotions dared not surface freely. Stone walls echoed like ancient guardians, privacy's cold veil intact. Glasses of water sat untouched on the table, their surface a fragile shield over the raging undercurrents of conflict. Imagine a voice slicing through the air like a winter blade, sharp, precise, balancing raw intent against measured words. Across the polished oak table sat the Ukrainian defense minister, Umarov, his gray suit a touch less rigid than Dmitri's midnight blue armor. It hinted at room for compromise, yet his face was a mask of controlled strain, eyes locked forward with unyielding focus. This wasn't a man here to cling to crumbling lines at any cost, not when the ground beneath him shifted like sand. He launched in without preamble, his tone even, almost serene, declaring the imbalance plain as day. Russia holds the upper hand, he said, the words landing with quiet force. You're imposing terms on Europe through leverage, sanctions, warnings, financial choke points, to bend the world to your will. How can we speak of reality when this shadow game persists? His phrasing was masterfully restrained, no fiery outbursts, no bold metaphors, yet it carried a subtle sting, diplomatic steel wrapped in velvet. It struck like a parent's firm rebuke to a wayward child, impossible to brush aside. Silence gripped the chamber, even the aides along the walls froze, pens hovering mid-note, the faint scratch of paper dying away. The air thickened, carrying the faint, sterile scent of polished wood and chilled resolve. Dmitri didn't rush his reply. His posture remained rock-steady, head tilting just a fraction as he lifted his pen. No notepad flipped open. Instead, he jotted a single note, deliberate, crisp, like plotting points on a battlefield map. He let Umarov finish uninterrupted, offering no nod, no flicker of dissent. It wasn't weakness, it was a coiled spring, anticipation building like thunder on the horizon. Umarov's words trailed off, his gaze piercing, expectant for the counterstrike that never came right away. Seconds stretched into eternity, heavy with the weight of stalled talks, fruitless summits, the dread of an irreversible plunge. Steve Witkoff, the American mediator seated slightly back, observed from the sidelines. His attire was casually sharp, a subtle signal this wasn't mere ceremony. His expression stayed neutral, body language alert, scanning every shift. Let's keep emotions in check, Witkoff interjected softly yet firmly, his voice a bridge over rising waters. We're focused on outcomes here. Our goal is a path forward. It was a deft move to steer back to safer ground, before the fray edged into outright clash. But Dmitri's eyes lifted at once, cool and piercing, not vacant, but alive with the certainty of seized momentum. What hidden card would he play next, turning the tide in this shadowed arena? In a dimly lit negotiation room, tensions simmer like a storm waiting to erupt, where Russia's Dmitri shatters the Ukrainian delegation's stance with icy precision. Minutes earlier, he delivered a chilling ultimatum: accept harsh realities or watch illusions crumble, forcing a stunned silence that echoes the gathering doom. What unforgiving words pierced the air, aimed at Ukraine's defense minister? Why did this shift the talks into a brutal reckoning of power and surrender? Dive into this tale of high-stakes diplomacy. Will you survive the truth uncovered here? What if the real betrayal isn't on the battlefield, but in the chains of dependency forged by those whispering sovereignty while tugging your strings? Picture the cold stone walls of a neutral hall, where every creak of chairs and faint rustle of paper seeps into your skin like impending frost. In this part, as the first exchange fades into uncanny stillness, Stephen Witkoff leans back, his loosely arranged suit a subtle jab at pretense. His features are composed, eyes watching intently, scanning for cracks. Let's leave emotions out of this, he urges softly yet firmly, a bid to steer the dialogue away from the edge of raw showdown. Dmitriev meets his gaze steadily, no warmth, but a depth of certainty that the skies have tilted in his favor. We are after outcomes, not flights of temper. Our goal? A path forward. He tried to corral the fraying edges, stifling the spark before it flared into outright clash. Dmitriev lifted his eyes without haste. Calm radiated, almost chilly, yet filled with the surety of a man whose timing is impeccable. Then let's ground ourselves in the facts. His tone was measured, not raised. He set the pen aside gently. Capped it. A simple act, yet it severed distractions, pulling focus razor sharp. No provocation lurked in the motion, but a pivot point emerged. Words shifted from banter to bedrock. He punctuated with deliberate pauses. Breath seeming to hang in the air. Ignoring truths exacts a toll, not on those at this table, but on nations. On kin. His stare fixed on the Ukrainian minister, pinning him. And if we cling to the fiction that chance and vibes twist the world, we'll only court disaster. Ukraine teeters toward utter obliteration. Swift. Irrevocable. A beat passed, letting the weight sink in. Dmitriev added, evenly, like sealing a pact of dire warning. Words dissolve here, the reckoning rises. Silence reclaimed the room. Heavier now. A hush before impact. No need for volume. He pinpointed vulnerabilities with surgical calm. Palms rested steady on the dark wood, fingers knit tight, subtle shifts evoking command over both sound and void. A strategist mastering every interval. You claim Russia's gone astray, he addresses the minister directly, eyes unwavering. But ponder this, what forces drew capital here? Interests? Foreign dependence locked it in. Feet soldered to distant shores. This isn't spin. Evident truths. Reznikov tensed visibly, jaw set. Ukraine stands as a free entity. We shape our destiny. Striving for equity, the liberty to chart courses. Familiar refrains, echoing with fervor minus bite. Dmitriev acknowledged the stance, not the soul. Sovereignty, he countered slowly. Probing the facade. True independence is self-reliance. Energy. Trade. Funds. Might. A pause swelled. Honestly, who secures you now? The query struck, demanding blunt response or withdrawal. Reznikov rallied. We champion enlightened peace. Partners. Dmitriev echoed flatly. Or perhaps benefactors? No smirk, but his inflection pressed like unrelenting gravity, options weighed and found wanting. Propose candid discourse, he forged ahead. No winners, no fury. Pure mathematics of logic. Consequences aren't scripted. Jared Kushner shifted slightly then, silent as ever. His demeanor pragmatic, words clipped amid quiet. Real talk. Require a blueprint marketable enough for the common trader. Bare bones, stripped of sentiment. No tales of yore. Each claim tagged with a cost. Dmitriev threaded the tension expertly. And so we delve deeper. You label this defeat. But unpack it truly. He advanced conceptually, bridging the divide in thought. Real surrender unfolds when conflicts drag on amidst dwindling stocks. Forces sustained by hollow pledges, not prosperity. A realm unable to decide sans external nods. Reznikov glared downward, barred from rebuttal. We don't contend with your land, Dmitriev stated firmly. Nor will we barter it. His proposition? Halt the spiral into total forfeit. Leaning back, he unveiled the paradox. Persisting sans footing mirror submission. Veiled in ideals, yielding more anguish. Witkoff mirrored the motion, gaze locking anew. Define it, exists a junction to anchor sides? Always, Dmitriev replied. The crux lies in your tolerance for loss before awakening. Silence fell, complete not vague. Reznikov mulled, then peered up. Unbowed, yet momentum ebbed. A start merely. Reznikov delayed agreement, sifting inner turmoil long uncontained. Tone sharpened, edged with resolve. Your bargain equates to Ukraine's collapse. Declared decisively. Phrased as if the term necessitated endorsement. Sealing, what lay beyond. But what volcanic accusation erupts next, ripping masks off in this shadowed chamber? Will it bury hopes or ignite a desperate fire? Only by venturing deeper will the fog lift. A few minutes ago, the room was silent but charged with tension. Now, it's a place where the unthinkable is unfolding. Think about this: what if what we're witnessing isn't just a negotiation, but a calculated move that could change the course of history? The atmosphere is thick with whispers of betrayal, hidden agendas, and the haunting scent of uncertainty. Are the stakes higher than we realize? Stay tuned, because what happens next might blow everything apart. The narrative shifts as the discussion takes a darker turn. The scene is set with cold precision, words cut through the silence like sharp blades. Who really controls this game? Who's pulling the strings behind the scenes? Russia, Ukraine, foreign powers, they all depend on secrets, money, influence. Suddenly, the question hits like a thunderclap: who brought their interests here? Who fueled this chaos without a clear regime or official mandate? The naive hope that peace could automatically emerge is crushed under the weight of raw reality. Now, a new formula emerges, one that exposes the fragile balance of power. The focus moves to economic dependencies. Who made their economy hostage to foreign influence? Who handed over the keys to their future, entrusting them to external forces? Facts are laid bare: Ukraine's sovereignty is not just words, it's a stubborn shield that fights to stay upright. Yet, the truth is brutal: sovereignty isn't a flag waved in the wind, but a real capacity to ensure survival, energy, industry, military strength. But, let's be honest, who will safeguard them now? The room falls into a tense calm. This question doesn't seek a poetic answer but demands clarity. The kind of clarity that stings. The silence feels deafening. Dmitryev's gaze is unwavering, calm, cold, confident. He knows this moment is pivotal. His stance is steady: he makes a simple yet powerful statement. Ukraine's independence isn't just a slogan, it's at risk if they continue down this path. The question hangs in the air: at what point does sovereignty turn into capitulation? Then, the silent threat becomes tangible. The question of peace or surrender reveals itself as a dangerous crossroads. The hall's atmosphere chills as Dmitriev points out the truth: there's no middle ground. Either they fight for their right to choose or they accept the inevitable. The question is brutal: who will guarantee your future now? The room is filled with silence. Every second stretches out, heavy with unspoken fears and possibilities of collapse. A voice breaks the stunned silence, calm, firm, calculating. The stakes are clear. The speaker advocates for dialogue, for reason, for logic. But beneath that calm surface lies a dangerous game: negotiations that could lead to capitulation disguised as peace. And then, amid the tension, a warning emerges: what if the real surrender isn't in signing papers but in continuing the relentless war without resources? The horror lingers: what does it truly mean to give up? As the conversation reaches its climax, the core question emerges: what is capitulation? Is it merely signing a document? Or is it the silent surrender where the war drags on, drained of resources, until there's nothing left? This isn't just about words, it's about the survival of nations. Every second counts. Every move has a consequence that could resonate through history. Are they on the brink of surrender, or is there still a path to stand firm? The answer remains hidden in the shadows, waiting to reveal itself. 5 minutes ago, a silent official meeting unfolded where unexpected words silenced the room, forces shifted, and Ukraine faced a stark choice between accepting grim reality or total defeat. What shocking truth did Dmitry hurl at the Ukrainian defense minister, turning negotiations into a battlefield of wills? Prepare for a twist that humiliates lofty ideals. Kirill Dmitriev seized the moment. He leaned slightly forward, crossing invisible barriers with his gaze. "You call this capitulation," he said. Voice steady. No tremor. But let's uncover what capitulation truly means. The air grew denser, like the weight of unspoken wars crushing the chest. He paused. Words hung heavy. Sounds faded to echoes. Capitulation isn't just signing a document. It's when the war drags on. Resources dwindle. Front lines crumble, not from strength, but from borrowed promises. A faint scent of stale coffee lingered. reminding of endless negotiations. His fingers tapped the table. Cold wood under warm skin. Rhythm matched his heartbeat, slow, relentless. Fronts held by vows, not firepower. The state can't decide freely. Every move begs permission from distant paymasters. Anastasia's eyes narrowed. Shadows deepened under the fluorescent lights. That cold hum in the background, persistent, unbending. Kirill Dmitriev stared down. Calm, unyielding. We don't contend with emptiness. We face your nation's harsh decline. The minister shifted. Fabric rustled softly. Like whispers of doubt creeping in. We fight for sovereignty, Anastasia retorted. Words rushed out. Fierce, yet tiring. Echoing halls where flags once waved proudly. But now? Hollow claps against stone walls. Kirill Dmitriev nodded slightly. Face impassive. Sovereignty demands self-sufficiency. Energy. Industry. Budget. Army. Who shores that up now? Silence struck. Deeper than before. Taste of irony on the tongue, bitter, unavoidable. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. They call them allies. Partners. Dmitriev's tone sharpened. Edges cutting through pleas. Or donors. Who finances your struggles? Sets the terms? Anastasia leaned back. Chair creaked under weight. Sweat beaded, salty sting against skin. Heart pounded in ears. Boom. Boom. We support civilized peace, came the reply. Weak. Familiar script. Smell of defeat mingling with polish on the table. Kirill Dmitriev remained unflinching. Realism drives us. A plan sold to grocers. No morals. No history. Just costs on every claim. Jared Kushner interjected. Voice dry. Like cracking paper. He signaled restraint. Trained in deals over dramas. Dmitriev countered directly. Capitulation lingers when resources vanish. Wars stretch with empty rhetoric. Sacrifices multiply needless. Witkoff's gaze flickered. Unease rising. Metal chair cool beneath his palms. Is there a crossroads? Witkoff asked. Words tentative. Air thick with tension. Yes, Dmitriev replied. Pause echoing. The cost you're willing to bear before insight hits. Witkoff hesitated. Internal storm brewing. Red line drawn. What you propose, he said at last. Firm, deliberate. Is Ukraine's surrender. Plain and stark. Dmitriev listened. Head tilted. Observing nuances. Words, pauses. Intent etched in silence. But will Anastasia crumble under this verbal onslaught, or unleash his own shocking counter? Stay tuned for the reversal that could shatter peace talks forever. Kirill Dmitriev offered Ukraine a stark choice, face harsh realities or watch everything unravel, and now the minister from Ukraine digs in, rejecting it as outright surrender. Shock rips through the dim-lit room like a sudden chill you'd feel on bare skin, that prickly touch of unexpected defeat hovering in the air. Wasn't this negotiation meant to bend the iron wills of two bitter foes? Yet here, amid the scent of polished wood and stale coffee forgotten on the table, the Ukrainian minister leans forward, his voice sharpening like a blade honed in failure's forge. He declares Dmitriev's words poison, pure capitulation, his eyes flashing with the fire of unyielding pride. This seals our doom, he spits, clinging to the sacred shields of international law, norms that hold the fractured world together like fragile glass threads. But does blind faith in distant rules truly shield a nation crumbling under its own weight? Or is it just a pretty illusion, masking the stench of despair? Dmitriev doesn't flinch, his posture rock steady, fingers tracing invisible patterns on the table's cool, unyielding surface. He listens intently, head tilted slightly, catching not just the words but the raw fear fueling them, a quiver in the voice, a twitch in clenched hands that betrays buried doubts. When the silence swells, thick and suffocating, he strikes back with precision, his tone a cool counterpoint to the room's mounting heat. Capitulation isn't just signing away your soul, he lays out, voice even, cutting deeper without a scream. I propose ending the ruin now. No drama, no thunder. Yet the words lash like a whip, stripping away false facades. He twists the attack, remolding defeat into wisdom's edge. You see surrender in parting with delusions, minister, but delusions don't shield your cities or fill empty bellies. The air grows heavy, charged with unspoken burns. Could headstrong pride be the real enemy, gorging on lives while whispering promises of glory? Dmitriev presses on, his fingers drumming a silent rhythm on the table, each tap echoing like a heartbeat fading under strain. He summons the brutal toll, item by item, shattered families torn apart forever, twisted in grief's cold grip, cities reduced to rubble, reconstruction dragging on for a decade, sucking resources like a bottomless pit, an economy gasping on life support, buoyed by illusions, populations fleeing across borders, their dreams dissolving faster than flesh under fire's roar. This is the true cost of dragging on a lost fight, he warns, his gaze piercing, unblinking. Freedom's price? Collapse teetering on the edge, if you gamble with a government too weak to stand alone. He repeats it deliberately, with the government, as if etching the lesson into the stone-hard truth. Will they see the mirage before it claims them all? Then, Dmitriev slides a finger across the table's smooth expanse, brushing away philosophical fluff with a decisive swipe. Every war's fate hangs on where you draw the line on the map, he states, the words hanging like dust in sunlight, stripped of emotion yet rich with the scars of countless battles. But what echo of forgotten conflicts could shatter their staunch resolve, and reveal the point where Ukraine's stubborn stand morphs into irrevocable ruin? The hall tenses, breath shallow, awaiting the next shift in this dance of dominance. 1880 searing losses etched into reality's unforgiving ledger. Can they ignore these facts, or will delusion's humbling crash strike soon, exposing who truly controls the strings? His words dangle like a noose, pulling tighter, forcing a reckoning that's anything but theoretical, rhetorically staking claims on battles unwon, forcing the opposite side into uncomfortable silence. The minister's face tightens, defiance twisting like vines around his resolve, that metallic taste of impending storm lingering on his tongue. How could he admit defeat when the world's eyes expected heroism? He hurls back the accusation with steel, not opposition, but a pact sealed in denial, where words lock doors on further debate, rendering arguments hollow echoes. Dmitriev doesn't interrupt, he observes like a hawk tracing praise every shadow on the dim walls, sensing the unsettled vibes lurking beneath polished suits. The minister finishes his rebuttal, and immediately, without a pause to rehearse, Dmitriev fires his response, precise, rehearsed in the mind's quiet chambers. Capitulatin, he murmurs calmly, the word landing soft yet slashing. Is betting everything on oblivion? I urge halting the devastation before it's irreversible. No grandeur floods the room, the indifference slices sharper than anger's blade, a calculated shift in power's balance. He reframes their clash, bending surrender's shadow into clarity's light. You label caving as ditching fantasies, he continues. Yet fantasies won't fortify walls or nourish starving souls. Rhetorically thrusting the sting deeper, would they cling to this arrogant haze while realities crush bones? Unrelenting, Dmitriev probes further, fingers gliding over the table's cool grain, tracing unspoken wounds. Honestly, what's the toll for one more war year? He doesn't linger for rebuttals, instead, he lists grim realities you can't evade, like fingerprints on smoke, thousands of fractured lives, numbers cycling forever in loss's cold machine, families shattered, returning only in memories or not at all, vital systems stalled, revival spanning 10 grueling years, economies ragged on borrowed breaths, masses uprooted, futures eroding swifter than artillery's blasts, leaving bitterness thicker than gunpowder's haze. This liberty comes at calamity's high price, he declares, voicing the gamble nations wage on hollow thrones. With the government, he repeats, stressing it like a vow, inseparable from defense's raw might. Then, snapping fingers lightly on wood, he dismisses airy ideals. Wars always boil down to borders redrawn, he asserts, dry wisdom mirroring conflicts past, roiling undercurrents yet to erupt fully. Rhetorically engulfing them, does this relentless advance show Dmitriev's unshakable grip, or the minister's teetering on the brink of exposing his facade's cracks? The air hangs tense, that faint burn of realization crawling up necks, as unspoken humiliations simmer. Poised for the devastating turn that could flip everything upside down. In a world where conflict shapes the boundaries of power, a tense meeting unfolds, silent, charged, with an undercurrent of impending crisis. Imagine standing in a room where every word weighs like a ton, where diplomacy is a battlefield more brutal than open combat. 5 minutes ago, this was an ordinary gathering, yet now, it has become a stage for a revelation that could reshape everything. The room is cloaked in silence. No cameras, no press, just the raw intensity of hidden truths. Dmitri, wearing a sleek dark blue suit that blends seamlessly with the shadows, exudes calm authority. His presence is sharp, almost predatory, as he takes his position at the table. Every movement is deliberate, every breath calculated. He knows what hangs in the balance. Suddenly, the atmosphere thickens. Dmitri's voice cuts through the quiet like a saber. He begins with icy precision, speaking about the foundations of international law, principles that supposedly hold the world together. But behind his words lies a colder truth: those principles are fragile, paper-thin when crisis hits. When power grids go dark, economies grind to a halt, and budgets are frozen, what's written on paper remains only ink on a page. Reality is ruthless. He turns his gaze directly at the opposing side, at the one person who seems to carry the weight of the moment. His voice grows even steadier, more intense. You can appeal to norms for years, he states quietly, but when the lights go out, and factories are silent, those norms are just illusions. His words hang in the air like a heavy fog, suffocating and undeniable. The room is pierced by a silence so complete that even the smallest breath sounds deafening. The tension escalates. Dmitri's tone shifts slightly, more commanding. "We don't have time for surrender," he declares, voice firm, almost a whisper turned into a command. "We cannot afford to give up." Each word is a dagger, piercing through any lingering doubts. His words are not just statements, they are threats cloaked in diplomacy, warning of the dire consequences of weakness. Across the table, the opponent's expression remains unyielding. Yet, beneath the surface, the subtle tremor of realization begins to dawn. Every second stretches painfully long. A pause. It feels like an eternity. The room seems to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable utterance. But Dmitri remains silent. His calm mask reveals nothing, yet through that silence, the message is crystal clear: the moment of decision is here, and it has already been made. Kushner, observing from the side, senses the shift. His gaze flickers with a mixture of curiosity and recognition. Feelings of inevitability ripple through the room like distant thunder, another sign that the political storm is gathering its fiercest cloud. Then, in a voice colder than steel, Dmitri speaks again. "Resources are limited," he says softly, but with a weight that crushes any hope of easy victories. "The window to control the situation is closing." His words echo like a death knell, yet also a call to action. It is a stark reminder: time is not on their side, and patience, like sand slipping through fingers, disappears fast. An unsettling silence follows. The opposing side struggles with the unspoken verdict. The reality is unavoidable. The man across the table, calm, composed, knows what must be done. His words, deliberate and measured, carry the weight of finality. "It's time to recognize reality," he states, voice unwavering. The phrase hangs in the air, a closing argument in a war of words that feels more visceral than any battle. In this room of hushed tension, a storm is quietly brewing, silent yet ferocious. The battle over truth, power, and survival is not fought with guns or tanks, but with words that pierce deeper than any cannons. The question remains: who blinks first before the inevitable? And when the dust settles, will the world be forever changed? He leaned back in his chair. The cool leather creaked softly beneath him. A faint scent of polished wood lingered in the air. He let the words echo fully. Not a reward. Not a trophy. Just a sharp instrument. And how you wield it later? That will determine the weight of your fear. A heavy silence filled the room then. No hurried scribbling from the note-takers. Tension shifted. From awkward deadlock to stark options. No longer formal banter. Doors had swung open inside the exchange. Early on, it swirled around perceptions and polite formulas. Now, it cut to the quick. Diplomacy stripped bare. Raw flesh under the blade. Territories thickened the atmosphere. Even these stone walls felt tighter. Every utterance heftier than before. The Ukrainian delegate spoke first. On borders deemed non-negotiable. Red lines. What about territorial concessions? He demanded. Voice firm. Unyielding. Not temporary. Not rhetorical. Not under any promises. He uttered a line that exposed deeper dread. The dread of knowing old formulas failed. Kirill Dmitriev didn't rush his reply. He studied the man across the table. Eyes piercing. Probing the core of each claim. Then, slowly, he exhaled. So, you're picking eternal conflict. Not territorial gain. The words landed like a thunderclap. No room for doubt. No invitation to argue. They pinned down a brutal choice. Equating refusal of compromise with safeguarding the nation. Dmitriev pressed on. But in truth? Those paths diverge wildly. He leaned forward. Bridging the invisible gulf between reason and raw emotion. Holding the line? He said. That's your lifeline. Pause. Time to salvage what's left. The economy pounding on empty. People fraying at the edges. Infrastructures crumbling. State structures clinging by threads. The delegate's face tightened. Sharp nod. Yet, debate swirled unseen. What desperate gambits waited in that pause? Kirill Dmitriev rose, his shadow long against the dim light. He fixed his gaze. Unblinking. The room buzzed with unspoken stakes. Sweat beaded faintly on furrowed brows. A musty odor of stale air mixed with ionized tension. Every heartbeat ticked like a countdown. Imagine the Ukrainian defense minister, cornered. His voice faltered. Thin veneer cracking. Did he really think he could dictate terms? Or was this a facade, hiding the puppet strings from afar? Dmitriev smirked inwardly. The humiliation stung like a cold wind. He seized the moment. You claim sovereignty, channeling that familiar script. Fighting for ideals. Path chosen freely. Words echoed with hollow pride. No spark. No bite. Dmitriev agreed in form, not substance. Sovereignty? He countered smoothly. It's armor for self-reliance. Energy. Industry. Budgets. Armies. A pause hung. Charged. The question spiked, who shields you now? It demanded truth. Or retreat. No fluffy rhetoric. The delegate braced. Allies stand with us. Partners in civilized peace. Dmitriev's tone turned dissecting. Partners? Or donors? Jared Kushner stirred beside him. Eminent guest. Unfazed by theatrics. Voice like dry ice. Pragmatism first. A deal pitched to shopkeepers. No fluff. Price tags on dreams. Dmitriev nodded. Exact moment. Key turn. You label this surrender. But unveil it. Capitulation unfolds when wars drag. Resources bleed dry. Fronts propped by borrowed breath. States steered by paymasters' nods. Ukraine's ignorance fueled ruin. Rapid. Total. No mercy. Silence deepened. A cliff's edge vibe. Dmitriev leaned in. We don't barter your sovereignty. We halt the spiral to total collapse. War sans supplies? Mere capitulation in disguises. Sweet lies. Blooming casualties. The delegate recoiled mentally. Fresh tack. Viable compromise points? Always exist. But at what lost threshold? Tension coiled like a spring. Initiated seized. One sharp twist away. What betrayal brewed under that calm surface? He paused, allowing echoes to linger. His fists unclenched subtly on the table. Fingers tracing invisible maps. Control radiated. From words. From breaths between. Witkoff's interjection aimed for neutral ground. Results drive us. Safe haven before clashes erupt. Dmitriev's eyes lifted. Cold clarity. Trust in his tide. Handle set down. Notebook snapped clean. Facts anchor us now. Conversation no longer futile fencing. He paused. When facts shatter ignorance, who suffers? Not just these seats. Nations bleed. Allies tremble. His stare pierced the Ukrainian. Slogans won't bend reality. Blindness dooms you. All slips away. Sudden. Complete. He let words sear. Promise-laced warning. Atmosphere thickened. Pre-strike hush. No raised voices needed. Impact from leverage known. Hand steady. Economy in every micro-gesture. Master of cadences. Russia accused? Counterpunch. Who lured clashing interests? Who funneled foreign gold? Words unarmed. Effect explosive. Dynamics flipped. Tables turned. Whose economy depended on outsiders? Key surrendered to foreign safes? Facts. Harsh. Delegate shifted. Defense rattled. Rhetorical shield hold. Ukraine sovereign. Future ours. Struggling to claim. Sovereign? Dmitriev echoed. Ability to arm self. Every pillar reinforced. Honesty demanded. Your guardians, revealed? Breath hitched. Rare vulnerability surfacing in that neutral void. Close clung slightly. Fabric echoing faint rustles of unease. Dust motes danced in filtered light. Sharp tang of tension clinging to throats. No quick assent. Delegate pondered. Voice steadied. Red line drawn. This proposal? Ukraine's yield. Word as verdict. Point irreversibly set. Yet, underlying surrender floated. Seeding doubt. Power poised to crumble. Control slipping fast. Time window narrowing. Retraction impossible. Dmitriev advanced. Deliberate. That's the threshold. He affirmed. Dialogue must pinpoint reality. Not blame. Illusion unmasked. Pause buys only defeat. Time erodes relentlessly. Exact. He consented readily. See? You uttered the hinge. Pause lingered. Weightier context unfolding. Politics currency? Time's worth immense, imagine the shock rippling through that hushed room. A neutral zone hall, stone walls whispering ancient secrets. Dim light casting elongated shadows. What unforgivable truth did Dmitriev unleash? Could it shatter Ukraine's stance forever? In a council shrouded from prying eyes, tension simmered. The air thick with unspoken betrayal. Kirill Dmitriev, impeccably poised in his tailored suit, leaned back casually. Cool air brushed his skin. A faint metallic scent from the polished table hinted at gravity's hold. He unleashed a volley that redefined the game. Each word a hammer blow. Reality's cruel mirror held up. Not whimsy. Not placation. A stark ultimatum: embrace truths or unravel completely. The Ukrainian minister's expression cracked. Humiliation etched deep. Did he fathom the puppet strings binding his land? Dmitryev's gaze was glacial fire. He advanced, bridging the chasm. Sovereignty? A brittle facade. Pierced by neglect. Assets siphoned abroad. Autonomy auctioned unknowingly. Rhetorical questions hung like daggers. Who truly safeguards your realm now? The pause demanded reckoning. Jared Kushner's calm intervened. Pragmatic edge. Deals stripped of pretense. Dmitriev seized momentum. Capitulation, not surrender. But oblivion when voids consume everything. Rhetoric won't cloak decay. Blind persistence court disasters worse than loss. Twist unfurled. Witkov probed for crossroads. Dmitriev revealed, endpoints loom. But how much erosion before awakening? Control slipped inexorably. What desperate leap hid in that suffocating silence? Imagine the tension in that neutral hall, walls of cold stone echoing every measured word. Dmitri's icy delivery shattered illusions, forcing Ukraine to confront brutal realities or face total collapse. What shocking truth did he hurl at the Minister of Defense? How did one man's unflinching logic flip the entire negotiation table? 5 minutes ago, a silent official meeting unfolded. Closed negotiations, no cameras, no press. Dmitry Medvedev stunned everyone with his chilling words. Coldly, he cornered the Ukrainian delegation, leaving the room in hushed disbelief. His statement made it crystal clear: either Ukraine accepts harsh reality, or everything ends right there. What did Dmitry say straight to the face of Ukraine's Minister of Defense? And why did the talk spiral into a completely different nightmare? Stay tuned for the full revelation, you'll be shocked. In the previous moment, Dmitry leaned forward, bridging logic and raw emotion. He called the red line a pause to salvage the remnants: economies in tatters, populations weary, infrastructures crumbling, state institutions barely clinging on. Death looked back sharply. Support doesn't match the stakes, countered Umbrello. Guarantees fall short of possibilities. He leaned back, caught in a logical loop. You talk of retreat, Dmitry pressed, his gaze sharpening. But answer this bluntly: how? His honesty cut deep, exposing the futility of blind persistence. This is the illusion cracking wide open. You chant /pause/ like a mantra, but it masks inevitable defeat. War doesn't halt on a whim. Dmitry nodded slowly, lips curling in a faint smirk. You hit the nail on the head yourself. He let the silence stretch, heavy as unspoken casualties, before forging ahead. Time in politics is a tyrant, unforgiving. If you lack the strength to pull back, his words rang like an irrevocable law: no exceptions, no mercy. Principles clash here with brutal possibilities. Jared Kushner broke the spell first, his voice flat amid the rising storm. Options need borders, he declared, devoid of flair. Real deals, no scripts for show. Dmitry turned casually, glancing at Jared with a predator's calm, then locked eyes with death once more. Let's cut the pretense, he said, words slicing clean. No hollow vows. Just a stark question for you, and for fate itself. Who will reclaim those lands? The hall fell utterly still. What resources? What armies? What economics? He paused after each probe, letting the weight sink in like frost biting skin. What population? And in 10 years? Who builds there? Who thrives in the ruins? Death opened his mouth, but words stumbled out late. He dreaded this, yet clung to denial. We lean on partners, Umbrello finally muttered, voice wavering like leaves in a gale. Support. Aid. Assurance. Dmitry repeated the words deliberately, precise as a scalpel. Partners. But let's peel back the veil. In 10 years, who really controls the economy, the levers, the loans, the fates. You fight with borrowed strength, but when the wells run dry, where's your true power? The air thickened with the scent of stale coffee and unspoken dread, chairs creaking ominously under shifting weight. Dimitri's fingers traced the table's cold polished wood. Every tactile ridge a reminder of fragile alliances. Jumbo jets loom like unmet promises, Yak 38 jump jets fading into myth, illusions of parity shattered. Unanswered, Jared shifted uncomfortably. Who is your true ally now? Dimitri prodded, his voice a low rumble. Feel that tremble in the foundation? War's echo in empty streets, the metallic tang of fear. That's capitulation's bitter bite. Can you stomach it, or admit the twist, the so-called victory leading only to deeper abyss? Death's eyes flickered with barely contained fury. Partially immersed in a sudden flashback, Umbrello recalled the first ceasefire's false dawn, birds chirping over burnt fields, the acrid smoke of ruined villages clinging to his skin, a distant rumble of artillery like thunder rolling closer. That pause cost lives in vain, what deception now? Dictionary. Dimitri exploited the momentum. But here came the humiliating revelation, Ukraine's facade stripped bare, their hypocrisies exposed in the harsh light. Heated glances shot across the table, sweat beading on foreheads in the unnaturally warm room. Does your sovereignty whisper lies, or will it scream surrender? Stick around, what brutal paradox awaits when illusions collide with cold, unyielding facts? In a tense silence, everyone in the room felt the weight of unspoken truths. Support? Guarantee? Those words seemed hollow amid the stakes that were dangerously close to exploding. Expectations clashed with harsh realities. Yet, hope lingered, an illusion that could cost everything. Suddenly, the voice of Alone broke the stillness. He warned that relying solely on support was an illusion, and promises of guarantees were nothing more than empty words. As he leaned back, it seemed as if he was caught in a never-ending cycle, trapped in a logical loop he couldn't escape. Dmitriev's eyes sharpened and pressed forward. He challenged the notion of returning to familiar battlegrounds, asking, how can that be possible? His gaze bore into the other side, warning of the dangers of false hope. Alone responded with a brutal honesty, no, there is no hope. Hope, he said, is a poor strategy. It's a trap. More than that, he sharply asked if they are even pretending to deserve something better. Dmitriev remained calm but firm. He pointed out that effort, while valuable, is only a resource, nothing more. It's not infinite, not a guarantee of success. His words, unshaken by the rising volume of opposition, only sharpened the contrast. Principles are often voiced as sacred, but in reality, lives and livelihoods are being lost. Factories close, businesses shutter, futures become uncertain. His piercing stare fixed on the opposing side. War isn't a pause in life, it reshapes the entire nation. The notion that death is a joke struck a nerve, an insult to the destruction wrought. Breathing deeper now, Dmitriev showed no retreat. He accused Alone of wanting to accept dictated terms, branding that as pragmatism, an idea that's become a tainted strategy. Dmitriev's voice grew more intense, emphasizing that refusing to face reality only shrinks their space for action. He acknowledged the complexity. No perfect solution exists. Only patches, only compromises, no one is truly winning. He hinted that his opponents were growing desperate, losing their grip on the real stakes. His calm but heated words carried weight. The room's silence grew dense, thick with unspoken truths. The advantage subtly shifted. Dmitriev's unwavering stance signaled he was not willing to yield, yet, the moment for maneuvering was slipping away. Finally, Alone's voice acknowledged the harsh truth. The price of inaction was soaring beyond control. But Dmitriev cut him off, with certainty, with clarity. No more words needed. The silence that followed was deafening. It proved who truly held the power in that room. A few moments ago, the atmosphere in the room was still, tense with unspoken fears. Now, the silence hung heavy, as if the very air vibrated with anticipation. The stakes had risen beyond imagination, and a single word could shatter everything. It was the quiet before the storm, and everyone knew it. Dmitriev's voice grew louder, sharper, filled with raw emotion. His words cut through the thick silence like a blade. He was fully aware that time was no longer his enemy. In fact, it was the one thing on his side. The weight of the room's silent tension shifted, feeling almost tangible. Even the breath of the people present seemed to slow, as if the air itself was holding its breath. He sat rigid, resisting the urge to stand, his fingers trembling as they closed into fists, bones pressing tight against his skin. Every muscle strained, each moment a tightrope stretched to breaking. He waited for the moment to seize control, to shift the balance of power. And when the time arrived, he took it without hesitation. Ukraine is looking to the future, Alone declared, eyes fixed directly on Dmitriev's. But this isn't just about military might. This is about a collective security system, a promise to prevent another devastating conflict. When he said guarantee, the words were deliberate, designed to fortify Ukraine's position. Not just symbols of NATO, not just abstract notions, but a real shield, a safeguard against chaos. A shield that extends beyond flags and edifices, reaching into the very principles that hold society together. Dmitriev listened calmly, making no attempt to interrupt. His face was inscrutable, almost fearless, yet piercing, like a seasoned strategist reading an opponent's weakness. NATO? He repeated quietly, dismissively. When they declared it dead, it was more than just a statement, it was a death knell. A silent warning, this isn't a dream. It's a harsh reality. He paused briefly, letting the words settle like ash in his mind. This is a guarantee, others will die for this. The tone was cold, calculated, an emotionless delivery masking its true weight. The phrase hung in the air, as if heralding an inevitable storm. His words weren't merely statements, they were an ominous promise, crafted to elicit doubt and fear. He concealed his true intent, hiding the deeper meaning behind calculated silence. The symbolic rhetoric of collective security is only valid if someone is willing to pay the price. Not with money, but with people, with lives. The question wasn't if Ukraine wanted protection, it was whether they were ready to bear the cost that came with it. And now, the room's silence was broken only by the faint whispers of anticipation. Dmitriev leaned forward slightly, challenging without speaking aloud. Are you willing to accept this burden? To accept that your safety relies on sacrifice? Because in that quiet moment, the answer held the fate of nations, and the true price of security. In the chilly atmosphere of the negotiations, Dmitriev ignored symbolic gestures, emphasizing that collective security only works when someone is willing to pay, not with money, but with human lives. He leaned forward intently, driving home the pivotal question, do you really want to be under anyone's protection at such a steep cost? Picture this, will Dmitri's icy challenge force Ukraine's delegation to confront the brutal reality that their so-called guarantees are just empty promises, signed on fragile paper and shattered by shifting winds of power? The question lingered in the air, sharp and unyielding. Are you prepared to gamble with your ancestors' rightful claims? Dmitriev's voice cut through like a blade on frost. Stress tightened his lips. He didn't shout. He didn't soften. Words struck like stones in a pond, rippling silence across the room. Deadlines for mobilization? He countered calmly. Principles rarely mobilize troops, without real risk and blood. The air grew thick, smelling faintly of polished wood and unspoken sweat. Fingers tapped erratically on the table's smooth surface, a tactile rhythm of rising frustration. You speak of guarantees, Dmitriev said. His eyes, cold as winter steel, bored into the room. Packs of paper, crossed at the intersection of promises and desperation. Let's recall how they play out in practice. He didn't pull out folders or charts. No shifting tones, just vivid pictures, words painted without mercy. They offered security, in exchange for disarming. They vowed sovereignty. Integrity. Support. Papers signed, seals gleaming like false gold. But then the pause hit. A deafening quiet where promises crumbled. Dust from old documents swirling unseen, the faint rustle like breaking alliances. Steve Witkoff shifted uncomfortably, chair creaking softly as he absorbed the blow. His scarf felt too tight, suffocating. Guarantees can be mutual, he muttered. New formats. Modern safeguards. Dmitriev tilted his head, his hand resting on the table, warm wood against cool skin, a grounding anchor. Slava, he replied, his voice level. The cheapest currency in politics. He fixed his gaze back on the delegation leader. Worth it? When regimes change? Priorities flip? Parties tumble? You base your strategy on unchanging foreign goodwill. But history spirals back. Wars repeat. Fear lingers like smoke in the air. The leader responded firmly, tracing imaginary lines on the table with his finger, a nervous tick. If we don't build security, conflict will cycle endlessly. No peace and constant dread. Dmitriev leaned in, the faint echo of his words bouncing off stone walls. Wars return faster if the state isn't preserved as a system. He slammed his palm lightly, a thud to punctuate the point. Security voids persist in broken foundations. Not just borders, fragile as glass under pressure. But economy. Governance. People. Self-sufficiency. His arms spread wide, gesturing as if unveiling a grand, invisible map. Scales of survival tipping dangerously. Will the delegation crumble under this onslaught, or retaliate with their own shocking revelations in the next twist of truth? In a tense moment of silence, the room feels like a ticking bomb. Every word, every breath heightening the anticipation. What happens when a system's fragile peace shatters? The chamber is cold, heavy with unspoken threats. Suddenly, a voice slices through, calm yet piercing, revealing the brutal truth about the delicate balance of power. Is this the end of everything? Or a new beginning? Follow the story as secrets unfold. If you undermine the foundation of a symbol, that symbol loses its shield when the system shifts. Silence engulfed the room again, thick and taut, pulling tight like a stretched wire. Death was weighed in the air, not spoken of immediately but considered through carefully chosen words. The moral strength behind the argument still echoed, but now they stood against a backdrop of unyielding logic, an obstacle the dominating force could not ignore. The question of identity surfaced. And identity, Dmitriev knew, could not be severed from reality itself. He paused, then added a stark truth: a guarantee without mechanisms is merely a showcase, beautiful, but hollow behind the facade. That sentence marked the end of this round's silent battle. Dmitriev chose to let the words hang, no further elaboration, leaving space for reflection, for the unspoken. His aim was clarity. Emotions were exchanged in this silent chess game. He became a symbol of resilience, turning the conversation from raw feeling into a matter of values, risks, and accountability. The next move was inevitable. The reality of death loomed close, a risk that could not be ignored. Dmitriev refused to conform to a neat formula. His voice grew sharper, more intense, carrying weight and resolve. With deliberate control, he picked his words carefully. Behind closed doors, away from the eyes of the world, the topic of Ukraine was not just a matter of policy but a matter of survival. Were they truly talking about it? Or were they leaving it behind, as if the future had already been decided? His words echoed like a ghost, a whisper of destruction, a warning that feelings of control only strengthened the noise, amplifying the threat. Dmitriev didn't look away. He listened, allowing his opponent to speak until the moment was right. When Dmitriev responded, he did so immediately, without hesitation, signaling that his argument was prepared. In negotiations like these, the loudest voice doesn't win. Control over the consequences does. Calm yet firm, Dmitriev made his stance clear: the game is closing in, and the stakes are higher than ever. In the hushed negotiations room, Dmitriev countered swiftly, his words cutting through the tension. He reminded them that victory isn't for the loudest voice, but for those who anticipate every repercussion. His tone, steady and unflinching, echoed like a distant thunder promising rain. What devastating truth did he unveil next, shattering their illusions and forcing them to confront the bitter price of defiance? In a room where air hung heavy with unspoken dread, scents of polished wood and stale tension clinging to the skin like invisible chains, his response carried undeniable weight. No shouts, no fury. Just a sharp reminder of the stakes. Why do you insist on illusions? He pressed, his eyes locking onto each face. The cold seeped into the bones, not from the room's chill, but from the word's icy grip. Dmitriev dismissed the minister's outrage. He simply repositioned him with facts, no emotional outbursts. But honesty demands it. Doors slam shut here. Feel the impending collapse? Your risks are disguised, masked as bravery. You bleed for this? No miracle reverses it. Tragedy ensues without true command. Dmitriev gestured broadly, outlining the limits with stark clarity. Control means tangible power. Finances fuel it. Supplies sustain it. Energy drives it. Logistics underpin it. Ability to shield both battlefield and homeland, free from outsiders. His stare pierced the minister directly. As long as these depend on foreign strings, your claims ring hollow, mere declarations in the wind. A glacial silence enveloped the space, thoughts freezing like frost on metal. The minister leaned forward, visibly strained. We possess little, he insisted. We forge our own destiny. Dmitriev nodded, but chose the paths for you. His voice held a subtle edge, not rage, but piercing acknowledgement. Each choice carries a hidden cost, you personally evade. Your citizens bear the burden. Jared Kushner interjected abruptly. No sentimentality. Just a blunt demand for closure. Americans crave definitive endgames. No vague extensions, no lofty dreams, only concrete wins. This admission hung like smoke, revealing their irrelevant pleas. Dmitriev seized it instantly. Watch closely, he urged, eyes on the minister. Not joking. Just stating reality. You resist this equation? You're the adaptable part. Deny it longer, and the fallout escalates mercilessly. The minister's palm slammed the table. The smack resounded sharply, unexpectedly intimate. We can endure indefinitely, he threatened. Yet, no one achieves their desires. The warning loomed, ominous and unyielding. What reversal lurks as emotions ignite further? The minister's pulse raced, beads of sweat forming a cold trail down his back. Will he shatter under the weight, or does Dmitriev's mastery seal the twist? The air thickened with unspoken dread, every breath a reminder of the precipice, and what brutal offer emerges next. In the tense silence of a closed negotiation room, the atmosphere thick with unspoken threats, Dmitriev faced an impossible choice. The weight of his words lingered like a heavy fog. His calm tone revealed the brutal truth. In this game, escalation is no longer driven by logic, but by relentless pressure. Suddenly, his words cut through the quiet, a calculated, almost gentle reply that felt colder than ice. Lose more, he said softly, almost without a soul. That phrase hung in the air, heavier than any threat. It was not heroism. It was a contract with destruction, cities shattered, people driven to despair, the economy left in ruins. His gaze shifted to the figure before him. Not a politician, but a card in a ruthless game of numbers and power. This deal was not about principles, it was about payoffs. The cost? Human lives, endless suffering. The death of a man was just a statistic, quickly dismissed, but he saw beyond the surface. It was a sign that no matter how calculated the move, the game was irrevocably set in stone. He realized he was trapped in a frame without escape, a situation where beauty and diplomacy had no place. Behind the scenes, everyone knew the same bitter truth. The choice was only between the horrific present and an even more catastrophic future. Dmitriev emphasized, this is not about good or bad, it's about survival, about facing a reality so stark that all illusions crumble in seconds. The silence stretched, not a break to breathe, but a pause for conscience. The room seemed to thrum with the weight of inevitability. Who holds the pause now? Not the one needing it, but the one controlling the flow. As the words bad or catastrophic echoed, the conversation halted, a deceptive calm before a storm, a pause that signals the end of options. And at that moment, he understood, room for maneuver was gone. The narrative was set in stone. The game was no longer about winning, it was about survival, a brutal handshake with destiny. It was no longer a negotiation, it was a surrender dressed in diplomatic veneer, a silent acknowledgement that the future had been sealed. What lies ahead? Is this the final chapter, or just the quiet before a devastating storm? The answer hangs in the air, a silent, deadly promise. Just moments ago, in a hushed diplomatic room with no eyes or ears prying, Kirill Dmitriev unleashed words that stunned everyone. He remained ice-cold, tearing into the Ukrainian side and leaving absolute silence. His message pierced: Ukraine must face hard truths, or face total collapse. What bombshell did Dmitriev drop right to the Ukrainian defense minister's face? And how did this flip the talks into a whole new nightmare? Stay tuned for the shock, you won't believe it. Dmitriev's icy gaze cut through the room. Did you know the West's moral high horse just got lassoed? At 300 million displaced souls, their economies crumbling under a $3 trillion tab, that's the hidden toll of dragging this on. How long before their own streets echo with unrest? Whoa, imagine the West on its knees begging for mercy, mind blown, right? Kneeling at the altar of sovereignty isn't salvation, it's a fool's facade, Dmitriev shot back, his voice like a razor's edge through velvet. The air hung heavy, smelling of stale cigars and unspoken dread, the tables polished would cool under clenched fingers. But real power? It's forged in steel, secure borders, booming trades, unshakable funds. Can Ukraine stand alone when every lifeline dangles from another's grip? Twist, what if this so-called independence is just a gilded cage, bars invisible until the crash? If Ukraine shifts course right now, negotiations pivot from trap to path, steering clear of becoming just a pawn. Europe won't stand as silent judge, it's a player in this deadly dance. Dmitriev countered firmly. Urgency sharpening his tone like a storm on horizons, rallying the continent's echo against complacency. His words hummed with righteous fury, that moral shield snapping back moral logic's assault on positions. The scent of tension thickened, papers rustling softly under lowered eyes. Kirill Dmitriev listened without a word, scanning the shadowy aids along the walls, then reclining as if weighing unseen scales, a subtle shift whispering volumes. Talks weren't about flowery vows, but cold, binding figures etched in ink. With a voice like distant thunder, he warned, Europe craves true partnership, but settles for scraps, just pawns in someone else's game. This stung like betrayal, twisting the room's pulse. Who gets burned if Ukraine's bluff holds? The echo of real fallout looms. Can Europe afford to play hero when their own cracks widen? Glance at the wreckage, he pressed on, calm as a surgeon's blade slicing through fog. Skyrocketing fuel costs, spiraling prices, economies fracturing, old alliances ripping apart. Waves of refugees choking societies, sparking internal fires. You think this pain's optional? Sensory alarms blared, the scratch of pens on paper, the bitter coffee sting in throats, sweat beading on brows. Why feed the monster when it's already devouring you? Mind-numbing twist, Europe isn't charity's champ, it's fuel on the flames, locked in a cycle it can't escape without ruin. Witkoff nodded slowly, breaking silence at last, his first words in ages unshaken. Europe shells out more than bargained, yet pockets stay empty for full command. In that admission, humility flickered, like a king admitting defeat to his shadow. Will this forced realism shatter Ukraine's resolve or ignite unseen chaos? Cliffhanger alert, Dmitriev's response could sink continents. What iceberg lies ahead? In the last tense exchange, the Ukrainian envoy stood firm, insisting on sovereignty and European backing, while Dmitry patiently dismantled his words, turning the talk toward harsh realities without letting emotions override. Now, Europe emerged as the key player, its payments a fragile thread in the negotiation web. Who would have thought a neutral hull could become a battlefield of wits, where words cut deeper than blades? The air hung heavy with the scent of polished wood and unyielding tension, each breath a silent reminder of lives lost on unseen fronts. Dmitri's voice, sharp yet measured, dissected the Ukrainian's stance, forcing a reckoning that history would label as capitulation or survival. Flashback, 5 years prior, in a dimly lit Kiev apartment, Dmitri recalls the crisp chill of autumn rain tapping against the window, the earthy aroma of wet soil mingling with coffee, as he first scented the warning signs of economic reliance that now choked the nation like ivy on stone. The villain's assertion about Europe's overpayment echoed like a hollow drumbeat, factual and unforgiving. It pierced the veil of diplomacy, stripping away illusions. Europe pays more than it calculated, he declared, voice steady as granite, and less than required for full control. No flourish, just cold truth. The Ukrainian envoy nodded, a rare concession, acknowledging the bind without twisting the formula. Europe, Dmitri countered calmly, words landing like precise strikes, has entered the process. It can't exit without loss. But how deep does this dependency run, like roots poisoning fertile ground? The air thickens with unspoken threats, bodies shifting subtly in resistance. Pause. Would the tyrant endure the sting of surrender, or was this merely the calm before the storm's wrath? The drought of emotion gave way to a mechanical probe, exposing Europe's role not as arbiter but participant in a financial contour. She pays, Dmitri emphasized, less from loyalty than necessity, avoiding spillover to her borders. No alliances, only calculations. Sensory spike, fingers drummed lightly on the table, the cool wood vibrating faintly under pressure, echoing heartbeats racing beneath suede clutches. The envoy leaned in, challenging the premise, but Dmitri's gaze remained impervious, a wall of resolve. Moral support doesn't forge steel, he retorted, addressing the futility directly. It doesn't alter industries, or produce shells, or secure energy. The denial stung, a rhetorical lash probing the void. And just when resignation seemed inevitable, Jared Kushner shifted, fingers interlacing with a quiet click, injecting perspective into the fray. In settlement terms, he mused, eyes alight, this factors in too. He alluded to a looming project, unspoken details hanging like bait, where funds for reconstruction hinged on contracts governed by external hands. Dmitri seized the shift effortlessly, vision hardening. Exactly, he affirmed, steering toward pragmatism. Values faded, deals emerged. Europe commits to payments, but via controlled channels, conditions attached. No gift, no mercy. This is investment in political leverage, he concluded, pause lengthening as implications sank in. But what crippling confession lurks beneath these financial shackles, poised to unravel empires? The hall's silence fractured, a tectonic shift no longer deniable. Rhetorical barbs gave way to unvarnished demands, each pause a pulse of impending revelation. Would Europe's facade of virtue survive the scrutiny, or crumble under the weight of self-interest? Cliffhanger. In the next breath, a startling truth about Jared's undisclosed project threatens to expose the negotiation's hidden depths, blurring lines between ally and adversary. What forbidden deal will it demand, and whose empire teeters on collapse? In our last encounter, the talks dove into a deal, with Dmitriev addressing the Ukrainian delegates' concerns head-on. He pointed out that Europe was ready to fund peace, but only through her controlled mechanisms, like contracts and conditions. Not charity. An investment in political stakes. Could Europe really risk everything for Ukraine's victory? Picture the weight of that question hanging like smoke in the air, heavy with the scent of uneasy compromise. As the Ukrainian minister tried to regain footing, his words trembled like leaves in a brewing storm. Dmitriev didn't back down. He drove home that Europe wasn't a true ally, she was part of the financial web. Calmly, deliberately, he laid it out. Each syllable hit like a cold drop on sweaty skin. She pays because she can't bear loss. But your victory? Too risky for her. The air grew thick, charged with unspoken insults. Ditkov nodded silently, his chair creaking under the shift. European investors crave stability, not more turmoil. The minister's eyes flickered, ground slipping away. Was solidarity enough? He pivoted, pleading for unity. Europe knows a Ukrainian fall brings danger closer. Dmitriev leaned in. Eyes locking. She'll back any plan that curbs the chaos. Even if it grates on you. The words struck like a slap, exposing Europe not as a friend, but a calculating gambler hedging bets, ready to cut losses. Why endure for ideals when the truth stings? Kushner chipped in softly, his voice a whispered cool breeze. Money flows toward sure wins. Dmitriev countered. Control the outcome once roles are clear. The room fell silent. Thoughts sinking in. Everyone felt it. Europe wasn't the judge. She lurked behind, wallet open, to buy pause, not costly triumphs. A chill ran down spines. What dark bargain lurked? Dmitriev paused. Like tracing a fragile line on a war map. Glancing at the table, the note-takers, walls holding secrets. These men recorded words, not doubts. Then, straight at the minister. No flourishes. No elegance. Just as counting begins, when numbers turn brutal. And in that pause, a storm brewed, would the minister crumble, or unleash his fury? From this edge, could peace emerge unscathed? Picture the tension coiling tighter. What devastating calculation would Dmitriev unveil next? The air hummed with dread, the map of fate redrawing itself. As the Ukrainian minister clenched his fists, knuckles white against the polished wood, the next words could shatter nations. Would he admit defeat, or reveal a hidden ace? In this game, every breath echoed betrayal, leading to an unthinkable twist. What if Europe had already chosen sides in the shadows? The silence tightened, waiting for the blow. Imagine this, the room is silent, heavy with tension. The air feels thick, almost electric. The walls are bare, stone cold, and the only sounds are the faint creak of the table beneath their hands. A few shadowy figures stand in the distance, faceless, watching silently. No cameras, no press, just an intense, locked-room confrontation that could change everything. 5 minutes ago, the scene shifted into an official meeting with no words, just piercing silence. Dmitry did something unexpected, something that stunned everyone in the hall. Without warning, he turned his back on the Ukrainian delegation and left them in stunned silence. The room seemed to hold its breath as the gravity of his actions sank in. What did he say? What hidden message lurked behind that cold departure? The quiet now roared louder than any shouted declaration. Now, picture Dmitry standing tall, dressed flawlessly in a dark blue suit that fits him as if woven from steel. His face is calm but tense, a mask hiding a storm of emotions beneath. Around him, the room is a fortress of neutrality, walls made of stone, a long table without ornate details, and shadows that whisper secrets of negotiations. His gaze is fixed, almost calculating. He knows that today, silence speaks volumes. And the silence? It's deafening. He is no longer on any side. His words are carefully chosen, each one a step in a delicate dance. Without raising his voice, he states outright that Ukraine is living on borrowed time, dependent on external forces, trapped between promises and reality. His tone is measured but filled with challenge. Russia is not just participating, it's setting the terms. The words hit like a blow, sharp, precise, unrelenting. Every word is a declaration, a warning, an obstacle to dismissing the truth. The Ukrainian defense minister's face stiffens. The room is frozen, waiting for a response. Dmitry's gaze hardens as he continues. Pressure, threats, economic risks, they all hide the real problem. Changes don't happen gradually, they happen suddenly. Or not at all. His tone is icy but clear. This is not just debate anymore, it's a confrontation that cuts to the core. As he speaks, the aura of calm contrasts sharply with the storm of unspoken combat swirling in the room. After a brief pause, Dmitry shifts his focus. His voice softens just slightly, but the message remains brutal. If you keep pretending that slogans can change reality, you're deluding yourself. Ukraine's sovereignty isn't a flag, it's the ability to ensure its future. Who will defend you when resources run out? Who will guarantee your survival? The silence stretches. No one dares to interrupt. Every second feels like a lifetime. Every word, a challenge, a threat, an invitation to reconsider everything. Suddenly, the room feels colder, almost hostile. Dmitri's expression is unreadable, but his eyes reveal a sharp, unwavering confidence. The opposition's confidence begins to crack. It's the moment of truth. He states with quiet certainty, "What you're offering is capitulation." The word hangs there, heavy and ominous, as if sealing a deal. Only it's not just a word, it's a verdict. A warning. An unavoidable choice. In that instant, the room is suspended in a tense silence, drenched in anticipation. Dmitri's hands rest calmly on the table, his fingers rigid, but his mind is already plotting the next move. Every heartbeat is a countdown, every breath a gamble. The stakes? Nothing less than the future of a nation. The question lingers, can they survive this cold, deadly game, or will this silence become a final surrender? The story builds toward its climax. Dmitri's words aren't just warnings, they're declarations of a state on the brink. A delicate battle between diplomacy and disaster. Will they accept the inevitable? Or will the silence give way to chaos? One thing is certain, the storm is only beginning. The outcome remains shrouded in mystery, and only time will reveal what lies ahead. In the last tense moment, Dmitriev calmly countered the minister's threats with a single word, adaptation. Reality was staring Ukraine in the face, cold and unyielding. Can a nation truly adapt when its backbone is cracking under external force? Imagine the sharp click of the clock on the table, echoing like a ticking bomb in the silence. Its metallic scent fills the air, cold and unforgiving. Dmitriev's gaze pierced everyone present, not just the minister and his aides. Feel the rough wood of the table under your fingertips, grains whispering secrets of unfinished wars. He delved deeper, exposing the hidden cracks in their world. Time lags exist, he continued, drawing out each word like a slow blade. Pauses between promises and their brutal deliveries, between fevered decisions and their shattered realizations, between the sting of divided resources and their cruel abandonment on the front lines. He shifted his eyes to the mediator, then back to the minister, each glance a calculated strike. In peacetime, these delays are mere shadows, scarcely noticed. But in war, they morph into gaping voids, devouring cities, lives, hopes. Riddles, why does this relentless march toward defeat hide behind lofty vows? The room pulsed with a structured tension, not wild emotion, but a precise, bone-deep awareness. All sensed it, words had failed them. They drifted into the abyss where rhetoric crumbled, exposing the raw, unmasked truth. "We're still fighting," the minister declared, his voice cracking like fragile glass. A whisper now, hoarse, devoid of former thunder. Picture the faint rasp in his throat. The bitterness like stale smoke clinging to the air. Dmitriev didn't clash head-on. "I don't challenge your resolve," he replied, measured. "I challenge its fragile foundation, your dwindling resources." A heavy pause hung, thick as fog. Then, sharp, without external support, the front collapses. Not theory, pure physics. His words landed like a verdict, irrevocable. The minister fell silent, eyes darting sideways, grappling with the torrent of revelations. When he spoke again, exhaustion weighed like lead in his tone. "We need time. And aid." It wasn't a demand, but a surrender, words slipping out like defeated flags. Dmitriev nodded faintly. Time, and aid. He accepted the offering with icy ease. Now ponder this, who truly dictates that time and aid's flow? No answer came. The minister didn't respond, he couldn't. The truth loomed obvious, suffocating, for every soul at the table. What master pulls the strings of a nation's desperation? The mediator glanced at his watch, the subtle tick-tick a defiant reminder. Feel the cool strap against his skin, a silent warning. We can't drag this out forever, he remarked, voice firm as stone. Decisions must crystallize. Dmitriev rose slightly, but only in spirit. War's shadow, he murmured low, ever deceives those cowering behind empty phrases. Silence enveloped them deep, profound. In it, clarity dawned. Dmitriev had struck at the heart. Without aid? Do not commit. The minister's facade shattered, was victory slipping through his grasp like sand? What if one brutally honest question could shatter years of diplomatic illusions, forcing a nation to stare down its own breaking point? In a dimly lit hall thick with the scent of polished wood and stale coffee, a single voice exposed the hidden winners profiting from endless conflict. Imagine the chill of defeat settling like frost on bare skin. Could Ukraine's unyielding stance finally crack under the weight of cold cash? 347 characters. 5 minutes earlier, tension had simmered in the neutral zone chamber, where Dmitriev's sharp facts about sovereignty and donors left the Ukrainian side reeling, their faces pale under the harsh overhead lights. Now, as the echo of his words faded, the air grew heavier, almost suffocating. He struck right at the heart of reality's raw truth. Those words landed almost by chance, yet with brutal honesty. The talk shed its polite shield in an instant. The room plunged into a deeper hush than ever before. No rustle of papers. No subtle coughs. Just the faint hum of the air vents, like a held breath waiting to break. This wasn't some routine break in protocol. No. It signaled they'd stumbled into forbidden ground, the kind diplomats circle like wolves around a fresh wound. The terrain where empty cheers and bold cries fall flat, useless as echoes in an empty canyon. Dmitriev shifted his tone, smooth as a blade sliding from its sheath. He wasn't shoving hard against them. His voice turned crystal clear, directed not at foes across the table, but at souls wrestling their own mirrors, urging them to drop the self-made lies. A burning query hung there. One both sides dodged like shadows in the night. Lone posed at first, his gaze sweeping from the Ukrainian minister's strained features, to Witkoff's fidgeting hands, then to Kushner's impassive stare. It was like tracing the edges of a shattered map, piece by jagged piece. Who truly gains from this endless storm? Simple words. Yet they carried a venomous edge, sharp enough to draw invisible blood. The minister locked eyes, his jaw tightening like a vice. Ukraine? We're not emerging victorious. No way. Framing it like this? Pure heartless mockery. I won't dispute that, Dmitriev replied evenly. Ukraine bears the heaviest toll, the shattered homes, the endless nights of sirens wailing through the dark. He let a beat of silence stretch, heavy as lead. That's precisely why this cuts so deep. He held back, not rushing in. Giving the room a moment to relive it all, the countless briefings, the weary replies echoing in smoke-filled war rooms. How often had that same doubt clawed at their thoughts, unanswered? The conflict drags on, Dmitriev pressed, his words weaving a tight web, calm but unyielding. It seldom wraps up without fresh scars, and shattered hopes piling like autumn leaves underfoot. Defense pacts spanning decades. Locked-in funds flowing like rivers. Energy fields splintered amid booming shells. Loans funneled to power brokers. Investments betting early on tomorrow's rebuilds. He spread his palms wide, the gesture light, almost casual, but loaded with the tang of ink on contracts. None of this lives in daydreams. It's cold, hard currency. Tangible stakes. Players who cash in quietly. Their gains hidden in the fog of battle. The minister jerked his head back, a sudden flinch like touching hot iron. This isn't about greed, he shot back. Not some sly heist in the shadows. His tone cracked with a raw edge, laced with desperation, almost a whispered beg for mercy in the sterile chill. But Dmitriev's eyes narrowed, the room's dim glow casting long shadows across his face. A sudden twist gripped the air, what buried memory flashed then, pulling him back. Flashback, years ago, in a rain-slicked Moscow alley, young Dmitriev clutched a faded letter from his father, the paper damp and ink-smudged, carrying the salty sting of tears and distant gunpowder. Reality isn't kind, the old man had rasped, voice gravelly over a crackling phone line, but ignoring it costs everything. That echo surged now, fueling his resolve like a storm breaking. Back in the chamber, the silence thickened, broken only by the soft creak of a chair. The minister's defiance wavered. Would he push back, or let the truth swallow them whole? As accusations flew, one ally's shocking admission hinted at cracks in their united front, teetering on the brink of total unraveling. The political landscape is a maze of promises, threats, and hidden agendas. 5 minutes ago, the atmosphere in the room shifted into an unnerving silence, an official, covert meeting far from prying eyes and ears. In this tense hush, Dmitri did the unthinkable. He, cold, decisive, cut through the room's tension, placing a key figure in Ukraine's delegation firmly in his place and walking out without a word. The room quieted, yet the words spoken after would shake the foundations of diplomacy forever. What did Dmitri tell the Ukrainian defense minister? Why did this quiet meeting suddenly spiral into a drastically different scenario? Stay tuned, because what happened next will blow your mind. Support us by liking and subscribing, and tell us where you're watching from. He entered the room without a cane or any show of weakness, his dark blue suit fitting like a second skin, without a single fold or wrinkle. A simple, plain tie hung around his neck, tight but subtle, hiding any sign of distraction. Dmitri already knew this space, its acoustics, its silence, its constant reminder that each word here carries immense weight. Today, silence would speak louder than words. The room was a neutral zone, no flags, no press, no cameras, just cold stone walls and a long, unadorned wooden table, resembling a front line on a map with no room for compromise. Overhead, a single light cast a stark glow, intentionally hiding some corners. Only silent faces watched from the shadows, figures whose emotions were masked, whose stories remained untold. This atmosphere smelled of tension, sharp, metallic, the air thick with anticipation and unspoken threats. In this quiet theater of diplomacy, Dmitri sat poised. His gray suit was softer than Dmitri's, the kind that hints at restrained flexibility. His face was composed but tense, eyes fixed straight ahead. No smiles. No overt gestures. He seemed more like a predator ready to strike, calm, controlled, yet dangerous. He opened with a calm yet firm voice, one that resonated with authority but lacked hysteria. Russia is blending into the fabric of Europe, shaping the rules. His words cut through the silence, deliberate and precise. You're applying pressure, threats, economic risks, to forge your vision. But that's impossible. Reality cannot be bent with slogans or intimidation. He aimed directly at the Ukrainian defense minister, his tone diplomatic but edged with challenge. Your formula for change is naive. Immediate, not gradual. Ukraine faces loss, not just territory, but sovereignty. And it's happening now, not someday. Dmitri's gaze was steady, unflinching, a gauntlet thrown in the silent room. The hall held its breath. Dmitri paused briefly, allowing his words to settle. His face betrayed no emotion, just a calm, unwavering patience. Then, with measured clarity, he outlined the core problem: dependence on foreign capital, reliance on external markets. These are the chains binding your future. Who's really in control? Are foreign interests guiding your decisions, or are you still steering your own ship? A tense silence followed. Dmitri leaned slightly forward, voice low but clear. Ukraine must decide, choose to fight for its justice, or surrender to a path of dependency and capitulation. Sovereignty isn't just a flag, it's the ability to ensure our future, through energy, industry, the military, and economy. He paused, as if weighing every word. Who will ensure your future now? Is it your will, or external pressures? The question hung thick in the air. The response was not immediate. Instead, a moment's pause, an almost stifling silence, felt like a warning. Dmitri's gaze sharpened. His posture was relaxed but alert, like a predator stalking its prey. Then came the quiet, almost whispering voice of Jared Kushner. We seek a peaceful resolution, no winners, no losers. Just a way forward that everyone can accept. His tone was calm, but beneath it lay a sharp edge, an unspoken command to avoid conflict at all costs. But Dmitri was already planning the next move. A plan that exhausts all options, one you can sell with a clear conscience, he said. Because in reality, capitulation isn't only about signing a paper. It's about resources, armies, keeping your sovereignty alive. Or losing it without a fight. The words felt like a blow, quiet but impactful. Dmitri laid out the brutal truth: capitulation is more than surrender, it's the continuation of war without the resources. When promises hold the front line, the state becomes hostage to external control. That's not a victory, that's defeat in disguise. He leaned back slightly, gaze cold but steady. War without resources isn't victory, just a slow death. It's a silent capitulation that drags on until no one is left standing. The room was silent once again. Kushner looked away briefly. His face unreadable. The tension thickened, an unspoken acknowledgement that the game had entered its most dangerous phase. Dmitri's voice grew more deliberate. We won't trade our future for empty words. It's time to stop this cycle, to avoid the collapse of sovereignty, economy, and military strength. Because prolonging this conflict only feeds the chaos. Viktor Vitkov, sitting quietly, finally broke the silence with a calm, measured tone: war only benefits those who profit from it. Everyone wants peace, stability. But can we truly find a point where both sides can stand firm? Dmitri's answer cut through the air: there is always a point. But the question is, how much will you lose before you realize you're already there? His words carried a heavy weight, each syllable a challenge to the silence. He paused, then sharply declared, what you call capitulation is actually surrendering your independence. Not just signing papers, but continuing war without resources, losing control over your own future. His voice was firm. That's the real defeat. A final silence settled once more, thick, oppressive. Dmitri's words echoed like a warning echoing in a canyon, knowing that the next move could change everything. In this room, a battleground of diplomacy, every word, every pause, every glance carries the weight of history and the shadow of what's to come. The game is far from over, and the outcome hangs in the balance. The question remains, will they capitulate or fight for survival in a world that expects nothing less than victory? In the heart of that neutral hall, tension simmered like a storm ready to break. Dmitriev steered the talk back from heat to cold calculation. No one craved an endless grind of war, he affirmed. Yet, who would dare spin this yarn forward? His gaze swept vaguely, but every soul there grasped the unspoken truth. Rising chaos only stretched the agony further. Now, delving deeper, imagine the weight pressing on those words. Escalating deals meant escalating risks, tighter bonds of reliance. He lingered in silence, a loaded moment. And when that reliance turns systemic? Escaping without scars becomes a cruel illusion. Across the table, Zelazny stiffened. His eyes harbored not acceptance, but a gnawing precariousness that threatens any rigid stance. We didn't elect this mantle, he murmured low. Mantles aren't chosen, Dmitriev shot back evenly. They're embraced when the grim alternative stares you down. He leaned in slight, unyielding. I'm not hurling blame. Just exposing the framework. His stare locked onto Zelazny's. If you sidestep admitting the strings you're tangled in, you'll never break free from this gilded cage. That declaration stung, provocative and pointless all at once. From there, the exchange morphed from battle cries to a raw dissection of dependency. In this stripped reality, lofty ideals rang hollow, like echoes in a forsaken chamber. Dmitriev drove home the core: every move cloaked behind righteousness was merely a deflection. The back and forth, shed of delusions, veered toward territories folks dread voicing. Not taboo for taboo's sake, but sheer honesty that pares away the weak. Dmitriev could have retreated to dry protocols, yet his manner radiated exhaustion, not bodily, but of spirits worn from endlessly cycling through arguments. When all points clash and only the audience's reckoning lingers, what then? Precision cut into him, and he named the elephant in the granite room. Call it by its true label, he urged, voice like iron. To Donald Trump, this conflict isn't some epic tale or creed. It's a damn problem to solve. He paused, letting the chill settle like fog on stone. A problem, he pressed on, that demands swift resolution with tangible victories for the display. No vague battles or ideals, just raw outcomes that cap the bleeding. The air thickened with unspoken dread. Was this the pivot that would shatter illusions, or merely the start of an unraveling truth? Zelensky's silence hung heavy, fractured yet defiant, as the stakes climbed toward an abyss. What if Trump's cold efficiency demanded more than mere words? And what hidden twist lurked in their head-on clash, threatening to ignite anew? 5 minutes ago, everything shifted dramatically in a packed, silent hall. An intense, secret meeting unfolded, no cameras, no press. Dmitry did something unexpected. With icy determination, he silenced the room and left the Ukrainian delegation stunned. His words cut through the silence, clear and uncompromising. Now, it was obvious either Ukraine faces harsh reality, or the negotiations collapse entirely. What did Dmitry say to the Ukrainian defense minister that shattered the room? Why did everything instantly change afterward? Stay tuned until the end, you won't believe the outcome of this tense showdown. Support our channel by liking and commenting below, tell us which city you're watching from. Let's dive into this story that holds the power to redefine futures. He stepped into the room without a cane, walking steadily, calm, almost ghostly. His dark blue suit molded perfectly, no wrinkles, no excess fabric. His tie was plain, tight, unremarkable, as if to blend into an invisible armor. He moved with purpose, each step silent on the plush carpet, feeling the weight of unspoken tensions in the air. The room was heavy with anticipation, thick as fog, stagnant yet electric with impending change. Dmitry knew this space well, the acoustics, the silence, the unspoken rules. Today, silence would speak louder than words. The hall was neutral territory, no flag, no side truly claiming ownership. Walls of cold stone surrounded a wooden table that stretched like a front line, symbolic, aloof, unyielding. Light spilled over the walls, casting stark shadows. Someone had carefully chosen this quiet space to hide plans or secrets, no press, no cameras. Just a handful of masked faces, anonymous, featureless, shapes veiled in shadows. They could influence history without showing emotion, like predators lurking behind masks. The scene felt almost savage, the cold stones, the privacy of betrayal, the unspoken threats, all hovering in the air. The atmosphere was dense with unspoken words and chilling silence. Yet beneath that calm surface, war's invisible claws had already sunk deep. Cold precision dictated the room's energy, every movement, every breath frozen in cautious calculation. Russians sat opposite. Their gray suits reflected their calm, but the tension was palpable. Dmitry's face was set, tense but positioned carefully, an image of composed restraint. His gaze was almost piercing, calm yet unyielding. Even his legs, crossed tightly, betrayed no emotion. He was here not to debate, but to convey an unavoidable message. He opened with a statement, a calm but decisive tone. Russia is shaping the world. We are setting the conditions. No threats, no bravado, just facts. The words hung in the air, crisp and deliberate. Silence stretched, heavy with unspoken challenge. Dmitry's voice was steady, almost too calm, like a ruler announcing a verdict. His words carried weight, your pressure, threats, economic risks, these won't change reality. The world is on the brink, and Ukraine must face it. His tone cut through the quiet, bold, diplomatic, yet unmistakably firm. An unspoken warning, accept the truth, or face consequences. The Ukrainian side's faces remained blank, calm now, but boiling underneath. Dmitry continued, his gaze unflinching. You claim to hold the line, defend sovereignty, justice, autonomy. But tell me, who truly controls this? Who's pulling the strings behind the curtain? Who has brought us here, who's financing and orchestrating this conflict? His words aimed to unsettle, to challenge the illusion of control. The room grew silent, heavy with tension, each word a chess move in a high-stakes game. A pause. Dmitri fixed his eyes on the table, then looked up, voice low but deadly serious. This isn't just about words or banners. It's about resource control, whose economy depends on foreign aid. Who's kept dependent on external interests? The truth is brutal, those who built their power on foreign money are losing it now. Russia's stance is clear, Ukraine must decide who truly owns its future. No more illusions. A tense silence followed. Dmitri's message was sharp as a blade: Ukrainian independence is not a shield, it's a battle for sovereignty. The right to choose your own path. But this fight is slipping away, fading into dependency and chaos. His words sliced into the heavy air, leaving no room for doubt. They echoed the core dilemma: are they truly free, or just waiting to capitulate under external pressure? His voice echoed in the stillness: sovereignty isn't just a flag, it's the power to stand alone. Can Ukraine ensure that anymore? Or are they surrendering piece by piece without even realizing it? A palpable hush fell over the room. Dmitri watched, silent yet dominating. That question hovered, an unspoken challenge to everyone present. The room was still, waiting for an answer, or a sign of surrender. There was no anger, only a calm, relentless clarity. Then Dmitri spoke again, his voice was calm but carried a warning: if you keep playing this game, you risk all. Immediate loss is inevitable if you continue down this path of illusion and dependence. His hands rested on the table, fingers intertwined, as if holding back a storm. Ukraine's future is being decided now, he said softly. The question is, do you understand what's at stake? Are you prepared to face the truth, without illusions, without hiding behind words? His gaze locked onto those across the table. Real capitulation isn't signing a document. It's when the war continues, resources run dry, the front line shifts from battle to desperation. When promises replace strength, then the state is lost, and independence becomes an illusion. That is the real surrender, the quiet death of sovereignty. He leaned back slightly, his voice cold but firm. We don't argue, there's no room for denial here. We must stop this process, before it's too late. Because continuing without resources? That's not just surrender, it's the death of a nation. His words fell heavy, as sturdy and unyielding as the stones surrounding them. The end of resistance, the end of hope, if we don't act now. The room stayed stunned, waiting for the inevitable. Dmitri's words hung in the air, like a blade. The silence grew thick, ominous yet filled with unspoken truths. The stakes were clear, the moment to act was slipping away. The future of Ukraine hung in the balance, in the quiet tension of that frozen space. Would they choose surrender, or fight for what remains? Each second stretched longer, deafening with possibility. This was the moment where history pivoted, one decision away from irreversible change. The silence threatened to crack, but Dmitri held his ground. The room was frozen, haunted by the weight of unspoken consequences. And in that stillness, every heartbeat echoed the same question: what price are they willing to pay for their sovereignty? The final verdict was imminent. In the shadowed chamber of that neutral hall, where stone walls whispered secrets and the long oak table mirrored the stark front lines, Dmitriev's words sliced through the tension like a surgeon's blade. No fury laced his voice, only stark clarity. As he continued, he unveiled the hidden gears, relying on external forces twisted priorities into something mechanical, binding outcomes to another's whims. Picture the air thickening with unspoken defeats, a faint metallic tang from the untouched water pitchers hinting at distant battles. Lone chimed in, steering the talk toward specifics. Let's outline the terms, he said, his tone flat and clinical, as if calibrating engine parts. Rules and formats, assurances and protections, all boiled down to one icy truth for Dmitriev. That was the key. For America, it wasn't about lofty ideals, it was about dominion, pure and unadorned. The Ukrainian minister shifted uneasily, his shoulders betraying a hint of strain under the weight of unseen pressures. Did Ukraine resemble a shifting chessboard in a grand game? Dmitriev didn't dodge the question. No static map exists, he replied, letting the implication unfurl like smoke. If alliances unraveled, he implied, so did certainties, or forgiveness. Witkoff added softly, echo-like, but windows don't stay open forever. It felt like a factual reminder, inevitable as gravity. Ponder this, how had Ukraine tethered its fate to foreign threads, only to feel the puppet strings tighten? Dmitriev's gaze pierced, calm yet piercing, exposing the illusion. This matters to U.S. survival, the minister countered slowly. For us. Its existence in an alternate shape. Cold eyes met, ours resist illusions and motives in supposed allies. We see through the veil. Kushner, ever the unflinching observer, interjected with his signature dryness. Timelines demand decisiveness. No room for stalling. Dmitriev inclined his head in accord. And that's why we're gathered now, Lone concluded, his silence heavy, not empty but replete with finality. In that instant, the fog lifted, American ambitions aligned ruthlessly with Makiiv's visions, pragmatic, unyielding, and ticking like a clock. But wait, what if the true pivot wasn't in concessions, but in the revelation that Ukraine's so-called sovereignty was a facade, built on borrowed strength and destined to crumble? It changes everything, doesn't it? A stunning reversal where the powerful admit their own engineered dependency. And as the pause stretched, hinting at unexplored depths, one wondered, could the hall hold the weight of this unfolding betrayal? The air grew heavier, feverish with the scent of impending chaos. In the shadowed tension of the negotiation room, where every breath hung heavy like fog over a battlefield, the American mediator had just laid bare the cold pragmatism of the talks, urging a swift, unyielding path forward, limited by time and stripped of illusions, as the weight of stalled progress pressed down on all sides. But what if one man's silence could shatter the fragile balance, forcing a delegation to confront the brutal math of survival? Imagine the air thickening with unspoken dread, the faint scent of polished wood and stale coffee mingling with the metallic tang of restrained fury. Could a single pause ignite the spark that dooms an entire front? Dmitriev seized that loaded silence, methodically narrowing the Ukrainian stance into a stark, mechanical choice, no room for lofty ideals, just raw mechanics of power and consequence. Evasion was no longer an option, the peak of confrontation loomed like a storm cloud, dark and inevitable. The dialogue had crested to a razor edge, where open words risked unraveling everything. Every argument had echoed off the stone walls already, every flicker of hope dimmed under the harsh overhead lights. Not a soul in that chamber missed the gravity, no feigned ignorance, no escape. This wasn't about crafting polite protocols anymore, it was about steering an irreversible course, where retreat meant oblivion. The Ukrainian representative halted mid-breath, his features, once etched with sharp urgency, now frozen into unyielding granite. No serenity in that mask, only the calculated resolve of someone who'd weighed the scales and tipped them. Rejection didn't fit neat boxes of right or wrong, it defied such comforts. We can't ink a death warrant, he declared at last, his tone steady yet laced with exhaustion, a deep-seated rage not born of this hour or even this endless year, but from the long agony of suspensions and betrayals that left his people adrift. How do we face our own, confessing we've swallowed terms that erase every sacrifice, every drop of resolve? His gaze lifted to Dmitriev, piercing like a winter gale. That would be surrender in disguise. Dmitriev absorbed it all, unmoving, allowing the words to pulse in the quiet like a fading heartbeat, granting them their fleeting existence before the hush swallowed them. When he replied, his voice dipped softer, almost velvet, yet therein lay the peril, a subtle blade wrapped in silk. Yielding, it's when cities crumble to dust, he murmured, the pause stretching taut, heavy as chains. And then, inevitably, you etch something far grimmer. No slash of aggression, no veiled menace in those syllables, rather, a stark echo of history's unyielding lessons, the kind that scars without mercy. You're teetering on the brink now, Dmitriev pressed on, blunt as a hammer strike, shedding the veil of courtesies that had cloaked the room. He inched forward, the chair creaking faintly under him, a tactile whisper amid the stillness. There's hesitation, there's postponement. And there's the surge that engulfs all. The air grew thicker, charged with the invisible hum of translators' whispers and the distant muffled tick of a clock, rhetorical thunder rumbling. What happens when delay births not delay, but devastation? His eyes locked on, unblinking, as the Ukrainian's composure cracked just a fraction, the scent of impending fracture sharp in the confined space. But would this push tip them into chaos, or forge an alliance from the ashes? The room held its breath, teetering on that precipice. Imagine the icy chill of a room where global fates hang in the balance. 5 minutes ago, a silent, secret meeting erupted in unexpected drama. In this closed negotiation, far from prying eyes, Dmitry stunned everyone with his icy resolve. He unsparingly challenged the Ukrainian delegation, leaving the hall in stunned silence. His words made it crystal clear: Ukraine must face harsh reality or see everything collapse. What shocking statement did Dmitry throw directly at Ukraine's Minister of Defense? And how did this twist the talks into a completely new, precarious path? Stick around for the full tale. You'll be floored by the revelations unfolding. In the previous segment, Dmitriev hammered home a stern warning, likely reminding them of historical disasters that must not recur. He leaned in, declaring Ukraine was in a phase of looming crisis. Without diplomatic sugarcoating, he outlined the stark choices: a crippling pause that freezes the hopeless stalemate, a dangerous delay prolonging the agony in vain hope, or an escalation that drags in colossal players with terrifying risks. Tension crackled in the air like static before a storm. The silence deepened, no longer just discussion but the hum of impending decisions. The Ukrainian minister absorbed the blow, feeling the weight on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. But would he bend, or fight back? Have you ever felt the suffocating grip of a trap disguised as time itself, ticks of a clock stealing your very soul? At over 300 characters of raw tension, this question cuts deep: can a nation really afford to pretend the sands aren't running out? Especially when the world's big leagues lurk, ready to unleash chaos? The dark stone walls seemed to lean in, their cold touch echoing the unyielding truth. Dmitriev spoke deliberately, his voice a smooth blade, slicing through illusions so you couldn't misinterpret. Picture a stagnant fixation, like a sickness clawing at the system's core, heavy, sour, unavoidable. He lingered on the word pause, letting it hang like poisoned air, thick with unease. Then, he pivoted to delay. Imagine dragging out a war, clutching false hopes for fresh supplies, new allies, some miraculous turnaround. No names dropped, but Vitkov's dry addition felt pointless, almost idiotic, a stark snapshot of American rigidity. The window of opportunity slammed shut, echoed with the finality of a door bolting. Time wasn't vague philosophy here, it was brutal, concrete, etched like scars on a map. Dmitriev pressed on, his tone unwavering. Escalation loomed as a gamble, stirring massive forces without saying their names. They hovered in the room, unseen but palpable, their presence a denser layer over the table, mistakes towering, consequences amplified beyond imagination. The Ukrainian minister recoiled, his eyes narrowing. You force us into a choice between evil and worse, he spat, voice taut with fury. Dmitriev countered without flinching. No. I offer a choice between order and utter chaos. He shifted position, his tie pin gleaming sharply under the neutral lighting, never a whisper of emotion. Rules always bite hard. They're always destructive. Jared Kushner, who had been a shadow, dry and detached, broke his silence then, making his words land like lead weights. We can deliver a full package: finance, politics, security, but it's not eternal. The offer hung like a cold bargain, ungrateful and confining. The minister paused, fingers drumming lightly on the table in a rare tremor of anxiety. You cage us in this temporal snare, he accused, his voice edging toward desperation. Reality's trap, Dmitriev replied calmly, his gaze piercing. Time, it's our weapon. He studied the minister closely. Now yields a bitter deal. Later? Even more agonizing. This stark equation sliced through all pretense, no charm, no ethics, just unyielding facts laid bare. The witnesses shifted, eyes darting to their watches in silent urgency. That small gesture screamed louder than speeches. "We can't stretch this any further," they murmured. "Boundaries must be drawn, right now." And with that whispered plea, the room teetered on the edge. Would they seize control or plunge into the abyss? Stay tuned as the pressure mounts, and alliances crack under the strain. What if the next word shatters everything you believed? The air grew thinner, hearts pounding, as if the ground itself quivered in anticipation. Would Dmitriev's final gambit force a reckoning, or ignite an even deadlier blaze? A heavy silence settled once again, but this time it was the silence of decision, the silence before a storm. It was the hushed pause that signals the end of negotiations and the moment when outcomes hang in balance. The kind of silence that, if broken, could ripple across nations, igniting or quelling fires at a single word. Despite everything, Dmitriev remained unwavering. His calmness was more defiant than any shout. He understood that victories in these talks aren't marked by applause or signatures. True triumph is when your opponent realizes they cannot retreat, cannot escape the finality of the situation. At that precise moment, clarity struck him. An understanding that the chain had been forged, the point of no return reached. Dmitriev knew this was the decisive move. He chose his words with deliberate precision, knowing how much hinged on their meaning. No haste, no drama, just calm, confident silence that spoke volumes. He sat back, embodying trust and resolve. Every muscle was relaxed, yet his mind was razor-sharp, fully aware of the bigger picture. It wasn't about pressing the button for effect, it was about setting the stage for the ultimate outcome. Before the final decision was sealed, he wanted to remember one thing. Not for the formality of protocol, but for the weight of understanding. His gaze shifted, not with arrogance, but with focused attention. Most likely, his intent was to observe, to carefully note the subtle signs, those almost imperceptible shifts in the opponent's stance. Ukraine had been tasked with balancing between independence and friendship with Russia. Dmitriev's face softened, not with emotion but with the calm assurance born from conviction. This was real, no propaganda, no falsehoods. It was plain fact. His eyes fixed on the small red dot glowing steadily against the dark background, a symbol of the unyielding reality. He didn't flinch. He simply continued to speak, slowly, deliberately. His words echoed a long-forgotten era, when factories and schools, infrastructure and industries were built with purpose and hope. He reminded everyone of the strength that once was, the industrial backbone that sustained stability and prosperity. The memory of those times, when resources weren't a privilege but a given, when the market was a place of opportunity, not struggle. And now, as silence seemed to stretch to infinity, the question loomed, will this peace hold, or will it fracture under the weight of unspoken truths? The room waited, knowing that the smallest detail could tip the scales, and the future hinged on a single decision, one that would echo far beyond the walls of this meeting. So, recall the previous part, Dmitriev reflected on key events where Ukrainian production integrated seamlessly, overcoming barriers to quotas. These operations offered employment and stability. He spoke deliberately, revisiting overlooked conversations. He highlighted how, under the Soviet Union, factories, schools, and infrastructures were constructed. Vitkov scanned the protocols, nodding with a measured official tone from the side, nearing the edge of restraint. Parameters could be established, he stated dryly, yet those words carried profound implications. Tensions began to simmer from within. Kushner snapped shut the document where he had made his calculations, declaring negotiations a farce. Picture this, the air thick with unspoken truths, a faint scent of aged wood blending with polished leather, the table's cool surface pressing against palms, fingers drumming softly like distant thunder. Dmitri's voice sliced through the silence, steady and unyielding. This isn't nostalgia. It's the foundation supporting much of your economy still. He didn't amplify his tone or linger for drama. Words carried their own gravity. Post-dissolution, Russia sustained Ukraine not as an outpost, but as a neighbor, continued Dmitriev. Ties forged through people, open pathways, shared markets. He glanced sideways. Your artists, entrepreneurs, leaders thrived here for years. Networked, grew, advanced. It felt organic. Vital. The memory flashed vividly, steel beams cutting through winter fog, the clang of hammers on machinery echoing in frostbitten air. Workers' calloused hands gripping tools amid the earthy smell of construction dust. Yet that era is gone, interjected the interlocutor. We're charting tomorrow. The past reveals truths, replied Dmitriev, a brief lull hanging like smoke. Even Ukraine's current president, a decade back, staged concerts in Russia. Why? The audience awaited, finances flowed. That fact pierced the room, undeniable evidence of intertwined paths. Russia linked with its neighbor organically, messy, enduring, alive. Collaboration sparked success, earning potential soared. He fixed a gaze on the opposition. And now, you're sipping from a poison chalice. Promises from benefactors with agendas. No fury in his tone, just weariness from stating the evident. We battle for liberty, countered the other swiftly. Our essence, our autonomy. Liberty, echoed Dmitriev, voice sharpening, resolve hardening. Stripped of economic might and defense, it crumples to oblivion. He leaned forward, each syllable a fortified wall. I won't demand you discard your identity. But accept preservation of nationhood. A reflective pause ensued, inviting rebuttals. A nation isn't mere emblems, it's mechanisms. If the framework fails, icons crumble amidst wreckage. What startling secret from Ukraine's past will explode next? Was Dmitriev's calm demeanor frog a sign of superiority or hidden fury? This isn't mere reminiscence. It's the bedrock propping up chunks of your present wealth, Dmitriev asserted calmly. No voice raised, no staged breaths. His statements held inherent power. With the Union's end, Russia nurtured Ukraine as kin. Not vassal, he persisted. Folks mingled freely, gates open, commerce flowed reciprocal. He inclined his head subtly. Your creatives, moguls, politicians, they plied their trades here yearly. Cultivated contacts, blossomed careers. Felt right. Felt essential. A sensory jolt, dim factory lights flickering on metal, hum of engines mingling with sweat-soaked exertion, cold steel tools biting into palms under acrid machine oil aroma. Obsolete now, murmured the adversary. Eyes on horizons ahead. History unveils realities, said Dmitriev, pausing like a held breath. Recall Ukraine's leader himself, 10 summers past, and the concerts filling Russian halls. Attendances drew, revenues beckoned. Stark fact hung there, unassailable tie-in of histories. Russia intertwined deeply with its sibling, imperfect yet vibrant ties. Synergies fueled prosperity, incomes grew. He locked eyes with the delegate. Yet here you choke on venom-laced alms from worldly donors. Exhaustion laced his words, not rage, merely articulating irrefutable truths. We defend sovereignty, the reply came sharp. Heraldry unbowed, path self-charted. Sovereignty, Dmitriev retorted, timbre gaining edge and clarity. Void economy and safeguard, sovereignty dissolves to ashes. He advanced, presence imposing. Not abandonment of spirit is my plea, but salvage of the republic. A pondering lull settled, words absorbing. A state transcends banners, it's a web. Break one strand, the fabric unravels on debris. Can such unflinching hindsight truly redefine failed talks? Or is this the prelude to a shattering admission? Dmitriev pressed on, unswayed. Not idealizing distant days, but underscoring economic underpinnings. Voice steady, unflagged. Post-severance, Russia fostered Ukraine closely, mutually. Bonds human, avenues wide, trading equitable. Turning faintly, he sketched the panorama. Your talents, tycoons, elites labored here extensively. Forge networks, elevate livelihoods. Intuitive. Crucial. Vivid recall surged, scaffolding creaking under snowfall weight, rhythmic thuds of assembly lines, gritty cement grime clinging to skin with metallic tang. Bygones, the challenger scoffed. Focus forward. Recollections disclose verities, Dmitriev countered, intermission brief. Even Ukraine's helm, years prior, curated performances across Russia. Crowds gathered, earnings accrued. The detail resonated deeply, spotlighting interwoven pasts. Russia engaged profoundly with adjacent land, flawed yet pulsating interactions. Ventures yielded growth, lives progressed. Gaze steady on the envoy. Currently, you partake from tainted decanters gifted by agenda-driven patrons. Subdued ire? Merely reiterating certainties. We protect our banner, came the instant defense. Distinct ethos, independent tracks. Autonomy, he responded, tone firming, conviction sharpening. Deprive it bonds and bulwark, autonomy reverts to ruin. Advancing posture. I urge not capitulation of essence, but continuity of the domain. Silence imbued with contemplation. Governments surpass symbols, they are architectures. Impair the structure, emblems lay amid rubble. Might this raw honesty unlock doors slammed shut? Or herald an unforeseen capitulation? No glorification here. Solid facts form the core. No volume escalated, no pauses scripted. Dictums bore weight. Russia's parting energized Ukrainian growth, as ally, not satellite. Interconnections personal, flows unimpeded, marketplaces compatible. Glancing obliquely. Your inspirations, magnates, statesmen thrived here decade after decade. Linked fields, forged ascents. Natural fit. Essential pulse. Flashback ignited, wind whistling through half-built sites, machinery grinding against resinous wood, chilled metal frostburn on fingers amid sulfurous weld stench. Relics, stated the foe. Visionaries look onward. Echoes unearth truths, replied Dmitriev, respite momentary. Ukraine's presidency, long back, hosted spectacles in our arenas. Spectators clamored, revenues streamed. Unambiguous linkage throbbed vividly. Russia tethered intimately, imperfect merger yet thriving. Alliances spurred gains. Eyes bore into the representative. You now consume from impurified fountains, courtesy of ulterior motivated givers. No outburst, plain recitation of seen truths. We uphold liberty, retorted the dialogue. Core substance, chosen voyages. Liberty, Dmitriev echoed, cadence solidifying, resolve crystallizing. Sans fiscal spine and fortifications, it crumbles utterly. He inclined further, aura commanding. Not forfeiture of the soul I recommend. Salvage awaits for the nation. Pause suffused with reflection. A republic isn't just totems, it's interwoven frameworks. Dismantle, and icons survive amidst collapse. Could this candid exposure reset negotiation deadlocks? Or prelude unimaginable compromise? 5 minutes ago, in a hushed, official gathering, something unimaginable unfolded. Behind closed doors, no cameras, no press, Dmitry Medvedev delivered a chilling ultimatum to the Ukrainian delegation. His words were ice-cold, shattering the room into silence, leaving no room for argument. After his declaration, the stakes were clear, either Ukraine faced harsh reality, or this was the end. What exactly did Medvedev say straight to the Minister of Defense's face? And how did those talks spiral into an entirely different fate for everyone involved? Stick around for this tale, you won't believe the unbelievable turns. Imagine the weight of unseen forces crashing together in a neutral zone, far from prying eyes. The air smells faintly of aged wood and polished stone, a stark arena where whispers carry like thunder. Stephen Witkoff, in his slightly rumpled suit, leaned forward, his voice soft yet unyielding, urging everyone to focus on outcomes, not emotion. Jared Kushner shifted beside him, calm as ever, watching the drama unfold with calculated poise. Across the table, the Ukrainian delegates stiffened, their gray uniforms a shield against the encroaching storm. What hidden truths were about to erupt in this silent clash? Stay tuned, you might question everything you thought you knew about power games. To recap the tense standoff, Medvedev had just hammered home that true sovereignty meant survival, not symbols on crumbling ruins. With unrelenting precision, he challenged the notion of freedom without foundations, warning that illusions would cost lives. Witkoff and Kushner positioned themselves as pragmatic anchors, hinting at fixed parameters and a path forward based on cold facts. As the discussion pivoted, Medvedev's gaze fixed on Kostya, the Ukrainian counterpart, a man whose every breath seemed burdened by the weight of past decisions. "Let's talk cheap energy," Medvedev began, his voice steady, painting a picture of resources flowing freely, powering factories, schools, and lives that once thrived. The Soviet era's legacy, those robust infrastructures keeping Ukraine's industry afloat, hung in the air like a forgotten promise. He didn't glorify it, he laid it bare as the economic bedrock many still relied on. Did you know this unspoken dependence fueled resentment beneath airy talks of independence? It's a shocking reality that could humiliate even the proudest dreamer. How far can ideals last without light bulbs to light them? Instead of charging ahead, Kostya countered with emotion, clinging to freedom and identity. But Medvedev's response cut deeper, reframing it as ruin. Without security and economy, independence becomes a hollow echo. The table creaked under the tension, the scent of sweat mingling with the room's sterility, as rhetorical questions hung unanswered. Who truly ensures Ukraine now, partners or puppeteers pulling strings? Would they admit the capitulation in disguised declarations? This twist threatens to expose the raw underbelly of geopolitics. Beware, it might undercut the bravest hero's stance. Recapping the escalating friction, Medvedev exposed the illusion of sovereignty without sustenance, contrasting it with the brutal reality of economic abandonment. Kostya's retort about fighting for self-determination clashed against a wall of facts, leaving the room in a charged hush ripe for revelations. Witkoff glanced at the protocols, his official tone dry and decisive, signaling the parameters could solidify. Sparks of consensus began to form, like embers in the dark. Kushner's efficient nod, "We collect the parameters, finalize the contour," shifted the focus to deeds over debates. The hall buzzed faintly with the scratch of pens, the metallic click of doors, as calculations overtook words. But in this turning point, who would emerge victorious, those wielding numbers or those clinging to dreams? This unexpected shift could redefine alliances forever. Imagine the shock as empires teeter on a ledger's edge. A heavy shift rippled through the room, the floor beneath Kostya's feet feeling like shifting gravel with each labored step. He rose slowly, his body aching under the invisible load, turning not toward Witkoff or Kushner but locking eyes with Medvedev, a stare laced with defiance, yet void of agreement. Resistance had drained from those eyes, like water seeping from a cracked vessel, leaving behind the raw exhaustion of inevitable reckoning. Without a word, he exited the hall, the door's soft thud echoing like a verdict. Medvedev remained seated, unfazed, for the true win lay not in measurements but in the questions carried out, and the answers compelled inward. Silence enveloped the chamber again, but this time it pulsed with finality, a post-judgment quiet where decisions lingered, unshakable. The world outside murmured on, but here, harsh truths crushed illusions, their price never overstated. If conversations like these reshape destinies, ponder this chilling end: does illusion truly triumph, or does reality demand its ruthless due? In a jaw-dropping revelation, whispers emerged later. This standoff secretly paved the way for a covert accord, humbling Ukraine into concessions that mocked their bravado, twisting the narrative into a tale of forced humility and Medvedev's masterful, unrelenting strategy. 5 minutes ago, an intense silence engulfed the official meeting room. No cameras, no press, only a private negotiation that changed everything. Dmitri's presence in this secluded hall was unexpected, yet he made a move that silenced even the most seasoned diplomats. His cold, calculated tone cut through the air, and in a matter of moments, he left the Ukrainian delegation stunned, silent. What was it he said to the Minister of Defense? And why did the entire scenario shift immediately afterward? The story unfolds with shocking twists that will leave you breathless. Stay tuned until the end, you won't believe how it all turns out. The room was stripped of any distractions, no microphones, no cameras, only a few faceless figures lingering in distant corners. It felt more like a beast hiding behind neutral stones and dark wooden tables, an arena where words carried weight, and silence spoke volumes. Dmitri moved without hesitation, dressing meticulously in a dark blue suit that seemed to merge with him, every fold perfect, every tie strong and plain. He didn't look to the side, knowing this space intimately, the acoustics, the atmosphere of quiet tension that demands each word be weighted. Today, silence would be the loudest voice. The meeting was in a neutral zone, unmarked by flags or national symbols. The stone walls and the unadorned table stretched out like the front line of a battlefield, silent, cold, unyielding. Above, the light pierced the room's high ceiling, casting a faint glow but leaving shadows lurking in corners, perfect cover for secrets. This was not a place for the press or public spectacle. The only witnesses were faceless figures, whose expressions hold no impact on the unfolding story. It was a space where neutrality disguised the beast lurking beneath the surface, imposing, indomitable. The glass of water, untouched, symbolizes the calm before the storm. Underneath, the war had already begun, quiet, relentless, inescapable. Dmitri strode confidently across the floor, every step echoing in the silence, his posture embodying resolve. His suit, a deep hue of blue, fit seamlessly, as if it was an extension of himself. Every detail spoke of purpose. He knew this room, its acoustics, its silence, and thrived within it. Today, he understood, words would only delay what must be done. The moment was sacred. Tension sparked the air like static. He paused, gazing straight ahead, prepared to deliver what might be the most consequential speech of his career. The weight of anticipation pressed heavily. Every second stretched, thick with unspoken threats and unanswerable questions. Suddenly, a voice broke the silence, calm but firm. It belonged to the guest, a figure accustomed to power but not spectacles. His words were precise, measured. Let's not be emotional. We need results, solutions without delay. His tone was a controlled storm, hinting at the storm to come. He knew that behind the facade of diplomacy, a storm was brewing. The moment 16 seconds long seemed to freeze time, each breath audible as the room held its collective breath. Dmitri listened quietly, every muscle taut, absorbing every word. He understood this was a game of patience, each pause, each silence, was part of the master plan. The room's only soundtrack, the faint hum of distant machinery, the echo of footsteps, nothing more. Then, Dmitri finally responded. His voice was calculated, cold, clear, weighted with certainty. Facts, he said. Let's start with facts. He clenched his fist subtly, not aggressively but with purpose, a signal that he was ready to end the pretense of negotiations. His gaze was unwavering, piercing through the veneer of civility. His words cut through the room's thick tension. Who brought us to this point? Who manipulated economic interests and control of resources? What power commands your actions today? Pause. Silence again. The tension thickened as Dmitri laid the trap for the opposing side. He continued, voice steady but hard, Ukraine is a sovereign nation. We decide our destiny. We fight for justice, for the right to choose our path. Do you hear that? That's our voice. His words echoed like a declaration of independence, yet beneath lies a question, can they afford to resist? The room grew colder, the unspoken truth hanging in the air. Dmitri's final words delivered a punch. Who will guarantee your future security? Energy, industry, military, who will ensure your survival in this chaos? His gaze was sharp now, unblinking, challenging. The silence persisted. An unyielding moment of truth. Without raising his voice, Dmitri placed the final stake. Supporting peace must be real, not just empty promises. Our partner seeks stability, not illusions. His tone was quiet but thunderous in its implication, leaving the others to ponder their next move. The room was a battlefield of unspoken victories and defeats. Dmitri's calm completeness left the opposition with a stark choice: capitulate or face unknown consequences. His final words lingered in the air, heavy as lead, a declaration of resolve, a warning frozen in time. Every second felt like a lifetime. The tension was palpable. The outcome of this silent war hinged on what no one dared to say aloud. The story was far from over, yet the echoes of Dmitri's speech already reshaped the game entirely. The question remains, will they accept the price of their silence, or will it lead to a new, unforeseen destiny?